Great job. Keep it up. Proud of you.
Rock and roll. Hey, so what's happening, guys? What you been up to this week?
I did a 14-hour stream last night that ended at 3:30,
Good.
and and then I can't just straight go to bed after that because I've just been on for 14 hours, so I can't just immediately turn it off.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
went on an I don't know hour and a half night walk.
Jesus.
And I went to bed. Ended up going to bed, I don't know, between 5:30 and 6 a.m. And here we are at noon.
I
Yep.
can't even tell.
Feeling good.
I'm also oppressively tired.
What happened to you, Mr. Gael?
I just don't have just like losing the thread, like not like going to bed at reasonable times anymore because I'll be out of a
yeah.
job by the end of the month. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, you want to care to talk about that?
Oh, it's just a technicality. I've been with the company for 5 years, and they've decided the global policy, the people in London decided that they're not they're not extending any more contracts for anybody across the world, and so that affects me directly. So my contract's not getting extended, and yeah, I mean everyone hates it because I'm pretty useful over there. But there's no positions open, and it's kind of it's a lot of red tape involved. It's they can't just give me a position. One has to open up, and I have to apply, and then all that stuff. So that's not happening. So
Yeah.
it's
It's very strange how it feels like in some ways there's so much effort being put into trying to get things back to business as usual, but there's these other things that wouldn't be happening in a business as usual situation that are still very negatively affecting everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I'm being told that's not what the case is. I'm being told that it's just a policy that was going to get implemented anyway. But if I had to guess, I'm sure it's being accelerated by current events.
I would think so. Yeah.
It's the assumption anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's
That's
whatever.
not good. Well, hey, you guys seen anything?
I saw the new Kaufman.
So did I.
Oh
Yeah,
yes.
I'm thinking of ending things.
I was just about to. Please tell me about this.
I loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah, it was great. I love that Philip Seymour Hoffman died.
Yeah.
You know where I'm going with this?
Yeah, I know where you're going with
And
this.
then Charlie Kaufman just made Jesse Plemons, Philip Seymour Hoffman. Just every day on set was like, "Hey, Philip." I'm like, "But I'm Jesse." Shut up, Philip.
It's really funny you bring that up. Yesterday I was showing so I went and saw Tenet. And there's a trailer for a movie with Jesse Plemons in it, and my roommate was there, and he was like, "Yeah, I just don't like Jesse Plemons. I feel like he's a poor man's Philip Seymour Hoffman." And I know he hasn't seen this movie, so that's so funny. The biggest coincidence of the week.
Yeah, I can see it.
I know, I didn't think about it like
right
that.
there.
I'm used to him as Todd from Breaking Bad, so it's still hard for me to get the Todd character out of my head.
Todd is because Todd is his most atypical role.
Right. Good point. Yeah, great point. There's a handful of roles that I thought, we thought about it. I was thinking, what's that, Game Night? And I was like, you know what? Philip Seymour Hoffman could have played that character. It's not a super Philip Seymour Hoffman character, but I can kind of see where he's going. I think a lot of it's the look. I think he kind of mildly looks like,
Oh, for sure.
How would we describe the look if we had to okay, so we'll start with no eyebrows,
washed out,
squinty eyes, a little washed.
Probably shouldn't have blonde hair.
I said Jesse Plemons was me if I was a little more Chinese.
Okay. I can see it.
Well, and he's and then he's also gained so much weight since Breaking Bad as well that makes it easier to separate those characters a little more as well. As people had issues when they did El Camino, and they had a hard time seeing him as Todd again.
Oh yeah.
But,
I actually didn't recognize him. I've seen Breaking Bad, but I didn't recognize him until Adam was like, "He's the guy from Breaking Bad." I'm like, oh.
I would totally believe that.
So,
I would totally. Well, I
haven't seen Breaking Bad in a while too. It's been
Well, my roommate had never seen it, so it makes a lot of sense that it's oh, okay, you're not having to contend with that other character, so all you're seeing is the stuff where, it kind of has that more Philip Seymour Hoffman thing going on.
Yeah.
This somehow turned into a review of Jesse Plemons instead of the show, the movie. But yeah, it's Is there? I literally don't even know what it's about because I already knew I was going to watch it, so I didn't look anything into it. But what's the spoiler-free elevator pitch? Conceptual of the.
it's
Kyle,
really
how would you
hard.
elevator pitch
Yeah,
this?
so I even told Adam after. I was like, "This is like I'm not sure if you've seen the trailer, but it doesn't really do the film
did not.
justice. I don't think there's a way to sell this film. Really, I mean, maybe that's not the best way of putting it. There is a way to sell this film, but not without. I don't know.
Yeah.
You have to kind of have to know what you're getting into. It's kind of very Kaufman-esque. If you've seen Synecdoche and you kind of know what you're getting. It's very much
it's on brand for Kaufman for
Right.
sure. So if you like Kaufman, I don't see a reason you wouldn't like this.
It's like it's not a horror film, which is what like the
No.
which is what the trailers are kind of implying to some extent.
No.
Even though
It's just weird.
It's got a very brilliant Toni Collette in it, and you know I
Yeah.
can't get over how good her performances are.
Oh, yeah.
But I think if you asked Charlie, he would say in the same way that he said for Synecdoche that he was trying to create a horror film, maybe like that was this impression when he was making Synecdoche.
I like the idea that Charlie Kaufman keeps trying and failing to make horror movies.
Well,
I
I
mean,
don't,
it
I don't think
is-
he's failing though.
No, I don't think
that
he's failing
Synecdoche
either.
is quite a bit scarier than most
Yeah,
actual
yeah.
scary movies. You know.
I actually think this film is also scary. It's just not like conventionally scary. It's like it's scary
Right.
just conceptually and very surreal.
Well, if you
one-
think about,
Yep.
I'm sorry, I was thinking like Ari Aster and Robert Eggers both do dread in their movies a lot more
Yeah.
than do
Yeah,
terrifying
horror.
jump scares and stuff.
Then, ah!
Yes, right. And so it's like if you were to take the banal dread of our real lives,
Of
and turn it
day-to-day
into
Oh yeah,
existence.
no,
Yeah.
it's actually really Kafkaesque, like the way it. Kind
Yay! We
Okay,
did
you know what?
it!
I'll give you a point for
it is a
actually being used
Kafkaesque
well.
dread.
But
You know,
it honestly
it's
is
like
though.
it's the terror of aging and like coming to
Yes.
terms with like death, and there's so much good stuff in it. Like it's honestly hard to kind of go too deep in it without like
yeah, that's fair.
because like okay, so here's the thing, right, about movies like this is one of the biggest joys you get is trying to interpret things for yourself, like watching it, going
Yes.
like, oh, this is like this and this is like that, and noticing things yourself. I think that's like one of the most rewarding things about watching a film like this, and me just going here and being like, yeah, did you notice that XYZ? It would be kind of like, I don't want to take that away from people watching it for the first time.
Yeah, for sure.
But-
Well, I guess
but
I just wanted to ask,
yeah.
like, if you had to say, like, for instance, Synecdoche, New York, you could say it's about a guy who ends up with an infinite budget trying to create a play that's true to life to the point where he ends up making it encompass, all of life.
Yeah. Well, on paper,
Yeah,
it's about a
super,
girlfriend.
Yeah, the super basic like surface level of
Yeah,
it
the
is
synopsis on Wikipedia or
a
whatever.
girl, a woman goes with her boyfriend of
7
6-ish
weeks.
weeks, maybe.
Yeah. We don't know.
depending on how literal any of the time is.
Yeah.
To his parents' sort of rural farmhouse, and they're there for a while,
And then they're not.
Okay.
and then they leave, and then they get ice cream, and then they
It's
go to
funny.
his old high school. The
It's funny.
end.
You bring in this movie is it's kind of timely just for a conversation I was having. So yesterday, I went to go see Tenet for the third time, and I was talking to my buddy about the concept of high concept movies, and what you're describing is basically like a low concept movie. It's like anything M. Night Shyamalan makes is roughly high concept, where it's like it's about aliens. Oh, holy shit, that was loud. It's like. It's about aliens. It's about ghosts. It's about whatever.
Yeah.
And so
It's about trees.
right. Yeah. Sure. Well. Yeah. I guess. Yeah. But no. But
It's about
like,
airbending.
well, the airbending. Yeah, it's very high concept. It's these kinds
It
of
is high
things
concept.
where it doesn't matter who directed it. It doesn't matter who's in it. You want to see aliens invade the Earth or something like that, right? Tenet. High concept. These kinds of movies. Yeah. I just watched Under the Silver Lake yesterday, also.
Love that
And
film.
Gael was nailing it with the whole just like the interpreting it. This is a movie where it's like someone being like, hey, you guys like doing that, here's a movie to like overload you with it.
Yeah.
Everything is something, and a lot of the things that are something that is still nothing ultimately, which can be frustrating for a guy like me, but it's fun because like you do get to come up with some of your own interpretations of what was going on. And yeah, so Kaufman, I feel like, is a master of these kind of, low concept. It's like if you are in the elevator, it's like it's a show about nothing, but there's everything is in the subtext of what's happening,
That's what always intrigues
Yeah.
me about it. Like because this is an adaptation of a book by the same name. And I read the synopsis for the book, and after the film, I read the synopsis for the book, and I was actually pretty happy with myself because at the end of the film, well, okay, maybe it's not that obvious, but I mean it's not that obscure, I should say. It's actually written pretty plainly, but I came to the same conclusion. I was like, oh, this must be what this means. And in the book, it's very explicit, like this is what, this is the reality of the things. But I'm trying to do this without spoiling anything.
Sure.
So it actually was very rewarding for me.
I haven't read that, so I want to ask you what it said off air.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's like coming to the same conclusions, like this is what it means, and then the book being the same thing, and so that is a part of kind of a rewarding experience. But cool. I was surprised, obviously, when I heard the news that he was adapting a book, that he loved the book so much he was going to make it into a film, especially an unknown book.
It's always
yeah.
Oh no, keep going.
Yeah, and then I read the synopsis for the book, and I was like, okay, I can see why, because on paper it is the same thing as the film, like it just. A couple going to meet the boyfriend's parents and her feeling kind of anxious about it. But it turns out that there's kind of more going on, and there's all these questions about identity and time that fit into it. And, it's very Kaufman-esque, and I can see why you liked it. But there's some variation there, especially in the ending. One of the things I really loved about the film is the representation of art. Like almost every, I can see this without spoiling anything, but almost every like major art form was depicted in the film in one way or another. You had like theater,
painting,
you had
poetry.
painting, you had poetry, you had dance, you had like literally every major, like musical theater as well. Like I don't know, like every kind of form of art that you can think of was depicted in the film, and I really loved that. And they even tried to say something about it too. Like they tried to, address some of them, being like, there was a really kind of good, cool part that I liked where she one of the things that she does is she's a painter. And at dinner with the parents, she's like showing them her paintings, and the dad is like, and she paints landscapes, right? And she's like, oh yeah, I mean, I'm trying to capture the emotion of a landscape. Like this is supposed
She tries
to
to convey
sad
feelings with the landscape.
With the landscape, and then the dad's like, well, how can you do that if there's no one there? If there's no human in the painting?
How do I know
something?
It's sad if there isn't a guy in the picture looking sad?
Exactly. Right,
Yeah.
and she's like, they get into this like philosophical debate where she's like, well, I mean, if you were there at the landscape, looking out at the landscape, you wouldn't see yourself. You would just feel sad,
But
right?
you'd still feel something.
And he's like, well, I
but
would
could
see
look
myself
down at
if
myself.
I looked down. and
She's like, okay, let's say you were there and not looking down at yourself.
and then we get like an even more like Kaufman-esque, I guess. Way of addressing that, where like later on in the film, you get a guy watching a movie, and then you're watching him watch the movie, and then it just cuts to just the movie. Then now you're watching the movie, so
you're just seeing the movie.
So you get both experiences of watching the guy watching the movie, and then you just watching the movie. I don't know, it's pretty great. Like it's really really smart, and it's very it's very typical Kaufman, just doing stuff like that to make you ask questions.
It's
I wonder if Robert Zemeckis was asked permission for his name on that movie.
I don't know. Yeah, okay. So that definitely wasn't a real movie. It's Zemeckis.
No,
right? All right.
Yeah,
they just like put directed by Robert Zemeckis. And
yeah, it showed you like the last scene of this fake movie, and then it cuts to credits, and it's like directed by Robert Zemeckis. I'm like, I wonder if they asked him.
The film actually, like the whole film, gave me some Silent Hill vibes. I don't know if you've ever if you've played those games, Scooter.
I've had the fortune of playing only the bad ones.
Oh, okay.
I believe I've played Shattered Memories, Downpour, and possibly a third one that doesn't have a number in it.
Yeah, no, it just has a kind of a creepy, lonely vibe to the whole thing. Like very lonely, and it's interesting because there's so much more I have to. Okay, so like, every time I sit down to watch a Kaufman film, I'm always like, impress me, right? I'm always like, this is gonna be bad, right? I'm like,
all right, Charlie,
I'm gonna be as cynical as I possibly
this
can.
Is on you.
Yeah, I'm always like very like, like fuck you, you're not gonna get it again. Like I know that maybe
there's
it's
no
just
way you'll do it again.
Exactly, right? I'm always really cynical, and then I'm like, fuck you. At the end of it, I'm still like, fuck you, but it's just for a different reason. I'm like, fuck you.
Yeah, fuck you. You did it.
Did it again, you son of a bitch.
Yeah.
I was like, because like for a while you get the impression that the film's gonna be like a very small scale, and it's gonna be like, it's just like
I was wondering at a point if there was going to be one set piece for the entire film.
Yeah, same. Yeah, it's like, it's just the car and like
I thought it was
the house.
maybe just going to be the car ride. Yeah.
Yeah, and then like by the end of it, it's like, holy shit! Like the budget just came out of nowhere, and then it's just like it's just
I was kind of thinking, I wonder if he had like zero budget for this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then, no, they actually had some. So I think he got to do what he wanted to do.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it's pretty crazy. So it really picks up like this in the third act, and which is a pleasant surprise because it kind of the pacing is like to some people it might be a little slow. I thought it was fine, but like but it kind of lends itself to that dread and to that like loneliness of having just being in that scenario for a while, which is funny because I watched another film that did exactly the same thing. Like yesterday or 2 days ago. Have you guys seen What's Up, Doc? Very different film.
Oh, the
Barbara Streisand.
Yeah, I know it, but I haven't seen it.
It's like from like the 70s or something. It's like a comedy. It's like one of those like classic.
It's like,
you know.
I feel like it's around 1970.
Yeah, like 75 or something.
If I saw it, I was a kid.
Oh, is that okay?
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Yeah, it is later 70s. I was thinking the other What's Up movie, the Woody Allen What's Up, Tiger Lily.
That movie is also insane because the first like 2 acts it's just you're in a hotel the whole time, and you know it's just like antics and stuff. And in the third act, I swear to God, I have like the budget comes out of nowhere. It's like what the fuck? Where did they get all this money? It's like why have they, it's just like insane stunt choreography and
where
50
was this
different
for most of the movie?
Like 50 different locations and it's like what the actual hell just happened? It was pretty trippy. The film's like not like amazing or anything. It's just a very typical comedy of the time. It's not as good as like Airplane or like Naked Gun.
I really love Arthur.
Arthur?
It's like that time period. Arthur and then Arthur 2 on the Rocks.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, they're good.
You mean the Russell Brand one, right? That's the good one.
Of course, yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah, of course.
Don't watch the.
No, don't watch that bullshit.
I forget the guy's name. It's him and.
Arthur is what? Dudley Moore?
Yes, I do believe you are correct. And then I'm trying to remember his wife's name. I have a sister who looks just like
Mrs. Moore.
No, in the movie. It's Liza Minnelli.
Oh,
Lil Garland.
Yeah, those are surprisingly quality for, like you said, around that time period. There was a lot of. But having said that, I don't know. I mean, the 70s is better than the 80s. I think like Tootsie, is good, and they're not. I'm not like in a hurry to go watch.
Isn't Arthur 80s? Isn't Arthur like 82?
I thought it was like 7. Oh man, no, it's 80. All right, the sequel's 88. So yeah, you're right. Maybe it is.
They waited 10 years.
What? First, 81.
No, 81. Yeah. So kind of that edge.
But
like
yeah,
it takes a couple years for the
the 70s absolutely bleeds into the early 80s. For
well,
sure.
they all do. It's like the 80s bleeds into the early 90s. Early 90s bleeds into early 2000s.
Yeah, totally.
No, it's interesting.
Why don't we just make the decade markers at like the
93
3 of each decade?
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's when the stuff starts from that decade.
Well, the hard one now is that like stylistically, and maybe I'm just too close to it, but I don't feel yet the huge difference between the aughts and then the tens, the teens or whatever.
Yeah, I agree.
It's really
it
muddy.
Might just be being too close to it, though. I think people are. I think in 10 more years, they'll be able to do a VH1. Will be able to do an they probably already have actually. Do an I Love the 2000s and an I Love the 2010s, and they'll be able to sort of pinpoint a lot of the things that were very of the decade. I don't know.
I feel like I can I don't know. I feel like that's not that hard for me. Like
for me, it all feels like it's technology driven, but it doesn't feel like it's so much cultural or style driven. Where like I can see a picture of a person in the 90s and a picture of the person in the 80s and a picture of a person in the 70s and say which one go to what.
And you can say what decade that is. But is style that different between like 2016 and 2007?
It's like
that's fair.
There's little things, but not huge.
I just feel like I don't know. It's like the 2000s. Like it depends on when you're talking, because like pre 9/11, it's still obviously just very 90s. Like very schlocky. And
then 9/11
even
was also
post
2001,
9/11.
so it's like
we needed 9/11 to end the 90s.
Yeah, it was a good. What's the word? Plosive or what have you.
Bookend.
Yeah. But no, like the mid 2000s, like 2002, 3, 4, 5, like seemed like I don't know, just there's a lot of like zombie shit, and there's a lot of like hokey, like just felt still hokey, like, and there's like I don't know, it's just
that's hard because I think there's hokey stuff now though. It's just different hokey stuff,
There is.
I think superheroes are super hokey.
Yeah, there's definitely a certain kind of, I know what you're talking about, a certain kind of hokiness to the earlier 2000s.
Well, and even though within the superhero genres too, like they also were more hokey earlier. I mean, one of the first big ones was Spider-Man 1. That's very different than most of what you get these days, the new X-Men movies or whatever. Before we get too far off of the movie, the Kaufman movie, I was thinking you were describing that scene where she was talking to her dad about or someone, she was talking to somebody about
Her boyfriend's dad, yeah.
her boyfriend's dad about landscapes and how he was, saying that you couldn't, if there's no one to see sad, you can't tell if it's sad or not. It's kind of funny because I had seriously almost verbatim that conversation with my old boss about music. And I was talking about how, for me, I've been wondering, I still don't know, why minor key sounds sad to us and why major key doesn't. And I feel like it's something in our bones that you could take a person like in tribal, Africa, and they'll think that Moonlight Sonata sounds sadder than, the second half of like
Yeah, just ask anyone anywhere, like, what emotional vibe do you get from this?
And it's weird because
regardless of culture, I think you're right. A lot of people will say the same thing.
And music has to be like very new, as far as, I don't know, maybe complicated music is very new. Pianos obviously and stuff are new. So and music theory has got to be relatively new on the grand scheme of like millions of years of human evolution. So it's like there's nothing I can see in normal natural life that would make us evolve to understand that.
Evolutionarily, yeah.
It's funny because
minor versus major.
In the
why
film
would it?
What's Up, Doc? The protagonist is a musicologist who wrote a thesis on how prehistoric humans drew music from rocks. I'm not even kidding. Like from millions, he's like, for millions of years ago, we have these igneous rocks, and they used to tap them to make sounds, and we created like music out of it. That's kind of interesting. But
and I believe in that part. It's just it's like why it's I don't know. It's just what are the mechanics is the part that's interesting to me on that. It kind of feels like how I do about like my phone, where I know how to use it, but I don't understand the mechanics behind it. So it's like I know the theory, I just don't know why the theory.
Honestly, I honestly think that there is a cultural aspect to it, even though like it is consistent over many cultures. I don't think it's consistent over all cultures. There's still some cultures who think that the major key is sadder than the minor key. It's just that over the past 600 years or so. No, like that's actually a thing. Like in the same studies that you're talking about, where they asked, culture, like they got responses in the opposite direction.
No, that's it. That's very interesting because that's what my roommate thinks. He thinks that it's 100% cultural, and he thinks basically the church used major keys for everything. And so when Catholicism took everything over, they ended up teaching everybody that this is supposed to sound good, and anything dissonant sounds like devil music and triads and stuff.
I don't know.
I don't feel like they had a big enough reach for how many people it's affected.
I don't know if it's 100%. Although I don't know, Christianity was pretty big for a while.
It was big, but I just think it's like I also don't feel like
it had a good run.
I also don't feel like I was born a clean slate on the matter and had to be told. I just knew this song sounds somber and sad, even if I didn't necessarily understand the logistics of the lyrics. And he's describing something sad, because we do it nowadays. There's plenty of songs like Pumped Up Kicks that will be like dark and sad subject matter, but it's done over a major key, so everyone goes, hey, this is
and
happy.
It's upbeat, and hey, this is a party song about a school shooting.
So you're not just being taught.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have actually taken music history at university. I was a music major first, before I did anything else. And I don't think it's 100% cultural, but I do think there's a lot of cultural elements to it, because this is something that was an experience that people had for hundreds of years. And so when people wanted to write sad music, they deliberately wrote it in the minor key. So more sad music exists in the minor key than in the major key. But there is also a lot of sad music that is in the major key. And there's also other keys that we haven't talked about, kind of the other modes which have
and stuff,
music,
Phrygian and Laodian and stuff.
And Mixolydian and others, where people wrote music in those keys, and some of it was sad and some of it was kind of less sad, and it kind of has to do. There's some music theory grounding behind it. Like for example, the whole tone scale has no center, and so whenever you play something in the whole tone scale, everything feels a little bit off balance, and it kind of has this dreamlike floaty quality, which it's usually the one used in dream sequences in the 70s, cliched dream sequences. You would hear a whole tone scale, but Debussy used it in his music a lot, and I love Debussy. He used it, and I don't know, he had it just added this.
I hate to correct you. I believe it's pronounced Debussy.
Oh my fucking god!
Give me some Debussy.
Two-Set Violin says Debussy.
It's a French name.
But real quick with that, though, one of the things with that is that there's a chicken and the egg situation there too, though, potentially, is that were people choosing, okay, I want to write a sad song, let me go get the minor key, or were they already thinking, this sounds sadder, so I'm writing a sad song, this is why I'm using the minor key?
There probably is something, it's probably not entirely, but yeah, I can see there being a cultural element to it, just sort of, as a group, a lot of Western music just sort of decided that's how it's going to be, and partly with the church, like you said, and partly outside of the church. I think that's just the way it went, and maybe it could have gone either way, and that's just it had to go one of two ways, and it went that one. I'm not sure.
Well, so the reason I brought it up anyway, though, was that my boss was having this. He was very, very seriously disagreed with me that he was like, no, he thinks all of this conversation is moot. That without lyrical content, you cannot tell if a song is sad or not.
Oh, that's fun.
And so it was very interesting because that's exactly that landscape situation. He was like, no, you can't. He's like, if you play me Moonlight Sonata, like it's nothing. It can mean anything. And
So I have
I'm
a
like,
question.
"Ah,
I have a question to that regard. Does the language matter? Like, can he if what if the lyrics are there but it's in Latin, right? Can you
I'm
tell?
guessing if that's his argument, he would need it in his language.
Yes.
He would need it in
Yep.
his language, right?
That's what I'd have to extrapolate. I also just don't believe him. I think that there's too many times you run into like music scores would do nothing for him for movies.
Right.
I was gonna say, does he watch? Yeah, does he turn off the score in movies because they're worthless?
As a special remote. Unless the character says, "I feel so sad right now." He can't
Okay,
tell.
this I get.
If
Yeah,
the
maybe
score-
that might
finally.
be it. That might be it. Context clues from the rest. It's funny because he
Yeah.
does it the opposite way. Most people like use scores to
Right.
be like, this is what it's supposed to feel like. But he's like, oh, this is what it's
Yeah.
supposed to feel like. So the score.
Yeah, he's trying to figure out what the score
it's
means
the
by
other way.
watching the
Yeah.
movie.
It almost makes me
going
wonder.
about it the opposite.
What could be interesting too is that like he might have something differently abled about his brain.
He
You
might
know,
might
like
be
there-
tone deaf. I mean, that's not
He's-
that
yeah, right.
unusual. Like, there's a lot
Guys, I
of people
think
who.
Chad just called his boss retarded.
old boss. And yeah, actually, I have no problem. I hate that guy. But it's
right.
very interesting,
Sweet.
though, for
Yeah,
other
all right,
reasons.
fuck
Not because of the movie thing, but, it's just a very interesting... yeah, it would be curious. It'd be like if you were having a deep conversation about color theory with someone who was colorblind and didn't know they were colorblind. It'd take you a little while to be like, oh, wait a second. Maybe you do just see
You
the
might
world
not
different.
see them this way.
Yeah, exactly, right. And so it made me wonder about that. But it was just interesting bringing that up. I was like, man, that's crazy. I've had almost that exact conversation with someone. So yeah, but another one that's like difficult like that, I just watched also again for roughly the third time. I just watched Swiss Army Man, and that's another one that's very fun for like interpretation. And even when you're talking about the budget stretching, the movie seems so cheap in the beginning, and then the set design just becomes the thing. Have you guys seen that one?
I'm about to watch it actually because
thank God,
I'm
it's
doing
so good.
I'm doing my 2016 list right now, and
okay.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm
So
about to
it's-
do
it's
a
on
video
there.
on it, and I want to talk about how basically if your messaging is strong enough, if the point of what you're getting across is strong enough, then how you deliver the message can be almost unimportant. And that movie, it's so crazy because the movie is so earnest that it could come across as very saccharine and annoying. But the messaging that it uses is through like fart jokes and stuff. And so it's so
Right.
crazy how it makes me so emotional and I feel so much. And it's such a magical experience watching that movie when the specifics of the things that they're doing in the movie are so lowbrow. And so it really has like opened up my mind for writing that like, okay, I don't like that's actually, I'm going to take that with me. Like you can get away with talking about almost anything specific as long as what you're saying is true. And there's like archetypal truth like in the human experience within it. It's very interesting. I can't wait to hear what you think about that. We should actually do like a spoiler review about that if you see this movie we talk about it next time.
yeah. I'll probably have seen it by next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might be done 2016 by next time. I'm not sure.
Okay. Have you seen that, Gael?
I have not, but I could watch it.
I think you should.
I do know that one of which makes me excited about it. One of the writers or one of the directors did The Death of Dick Long, which is probably the best movie ever made.
Well, those two
So-
guys. So it's
That movie was really weird. I couldn't really get behind it.
Oh, really? Oh,
I
it's so
didn't
much
hate
fun.
it. I didn't hate it, but I did.
I
I
loved
definitely
it.
didn't like. I didn't find it like, like it didn't have me in stitches. I wasn't
It was-
I wasn't like.
It was the
laughing.
feel good hit. It might have been because you didn't see it in the theater, right?
No, I saw it at home.
We saw it at VIF, and man, it was a fun theater experience.
yeah.
Oh, I
Adam sounded
believe
very
that. I
pleasantly
believe that.
surprised.
yeah.
I think Adam probably had a low, idea on it ahead of time. And so I know for me that happens a lot where I think something's going to suck and then it ends up being like, okay. And then you're like, oh my God. Yeah, you're right. It is one of them.
Yeah,
So
I think it
they're
was
normally-
overhyped. I think it was overhyped for me.
Well, they work on it with each other a lot. They're called the Daniels because they're both Daniel something. And you're right. Yeah, it's Daniel Scheinert.
Scheinert and Kwan.
And so, yeah, it was cool because they said that they're part of their shtick behind making Swiss Army Man is that, do you guys listen to Manchester Orchestra?
I do not.
I watch Manchester by the Sea. Does that
Ooh,
count?
Close enough. It's a very
Okay.
cool band, and they got Andy Huynh, the lead singer of it, to do the entire what do you call it, the soundtrack, and the whole soundtrack is a cappella. And so they're talking about
I've heard a song from it, and I think the song is called Montage. I like it a lot.
Yes, yeah. It's very funny in the movie. It's they're literally describing out what's
Doing
happening in the montage. Yeah. It's so good. All we needed was a montage.
Yeah.
But what happens is all the music is a cappella, and there's lots of fart jokes. And the Daniels were saying that part of why they wanted to do that is that their challenge was, we hate fart jokes. We think that they're extremely unfunny and lowbrow, and we hate a cappella music. So if we can do this so skillfully that we like it, then we know we've made a good movie.
I like that rationale.
I think that was pretty sweet. The other thing that's cool though is ties me into kind of the next thing I want to talk about was Paul Dano. Is really our main lead. We have kind of two
Is it
leads, but
Dano
he's
or
our main.
Dano? I always want to say Dano.
I believe it's Dano.
Right. I've always heard it pronounced Dano. It looks like it's spelled Dano. And
yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Dano.
It's funny. I just listened to Sardonicast today. They were talking about how everyone calls everything overrated, or underrated or overrated. And I can't think of a better word though for him, man. Like his name never comes up in anything, and I've almost exclusively seen him in good stuff.
He's so good at getting punched in movies.
You know who else is? Lakeith Stanfield. I was just talking about him. I was like, he looks so sad in everything. I always want to hug him in like every movie. It's like the only exception was Atlanta. His character is like one of the only strong characters in Atlanta, the show. But in almost everything else, he's such a puppy, and he has those big puppy dog eyes, and it's always like, oh, stop beating on me. And I'm always like, oh,
be nice to Lakeith.
Yeah, Lakeith is so great and everything. I think he's another just fantastic actor. But honestly, I do feel like he gets substantially more accolades than Paul Dano, though.
Yeah, probably.
Well, my favorite movie is There'll Be Blood, so I'm already he's on my radar because of that.
For sure, yeah.
And then he but even Prisoners, he's so great in Prisoners.
You've named the two best Paul Dano getting his ass kicked,
ass whooped. Yeah, he's very good at that. But even Little Miss Sunshine, his character could have been substantially more annoying and cringy, and I really liked a lot of it was the choices they chose with him. I love that there's a pivotal moment in the movie where he finally talks for the first time, and what they chose to have him say and how, and all the emotion connected to it. It actually really touched me. I thought that was very cool.
Mm-hmm.
But so the reason I'm, again, talking about why I'm excited about him lately is that him being the Riddler in the Batman.
That sounds like a good casting choice, actually.
I think
it should be interesting. Yeah, I'm on board.
Is it weird that every time? Maybe it's not. Maybe we're actually too conditioned for the Riddler to always be some what's the word? Conniving little skinny guy. You know what I'm saying? You never see a fat guy or you never see a Michael Clark Duncan in a Riddler role. You know?
Yeah.
Maybe it's just a cliche
for a number of reasons.
I agree, Scott. Yeah. What do you have, Scott?
Huge,
because I agree.
Black, dead.
Well, no, but seriously though, I think that because Michael Clark was Kingpin, so we could have had him at some point. I think what it is that we have the association Revenge of the Nerds, where it's okay, the conniving Riddler-y kind of person has to not be also physically imposing, and some of that's kind of just villain writing as well. If you're gonna have, it's hard to have a guy who is great at everything because there's no angle for the hero to attack him from, and it can feel cheap if you have a very strong guy and then your hero just beats him up because you're okay, so you're just
he was definitely written that way, for sure. The original Riddler was definitely written with that. I think he's ginger as well, just to add fuel to the fire.
To add fuel to the fire.
His name is also Edward Nigma, or Enigma,
which is great. Stupid. That is a win I will hear.
It's not just, but do you guys remember? Do you remember how in the original Batman stuff, the original, the stuff in the 90s, it was they also
Schumacher.
Yeah, it was also mystery, so mystery. It's I love that fucking shit. It's
mystery.
Well, okay, I agree. I love it.
I
love it when that's the
layers.
Tone. Yeah, when that's the tone, it's great.
But
but
so
it's hard to translate.
Yeah.
I think they
Paul
changed
Dano
his name. I'm trying to look here. I think in the casting here they changed his name to something else.
I would love a different spin on it. How when what's his face, when Heath Ledger did the Joker, it was it was a much different. It was kind of a different take on the character. And now all we see is Heath Ledger impersonations.
Well, dude, have you seen the trailer?
For what?
The Batman?
I have not.
Oh, dude, it's an extremely different take.
Oh yeah, I'm happy. I'll be really curious then. Yeah,
I
would love to see a different
extreme. Okay, well, so without spoiling the trailer for you,
I'll watch it. But yeah,
you really should because it's shockingly good. I have really written off superhero movies. The only times now for me have been I really liked Logan. I really liked Joker. I like this trailer. and I think there's something else in there. And the thing they all have in common is that they're the ones that are like, it's a standalone, it's a totally different kind of universe.
Yeah.
It's not
Characters,
written by the
stuff.
same kinds of people. Yeah, it's written by people who also seem like they give a crap. You know, like this could have not been a superhero movie. Is something they all have in common. So this looks like another kind of one of those, except for it really did need to be because it's, it's Batman. But having said that,
I'm just hoping Jared Leto shows up. Is he showing up?
Hopefully he shows up at Morbius. They just do a crossover. But the cool thing is that this trailer makes it feel like what if Batman took place in the 7 universe, and that to me is infinitely exciting, and the kind of stuff I've been wanting ever since Deadpool came out, and we proved that like R-rated superhero movies could make $1 billion. So because 7's one of my like top 10 for sure. It's hard because I have probably 30 movies in my top 10, so I need to just think of it differently, like a S
how it
class.
goes. Yeah, I rewatched 7 for the first time in a while, less than a month ago.
Oh, crazy! Yeah, okay. What'd you think?
It's fucking good.
Isn't it so good?
Like I love it. Yeah,
it's so shockingly good. It's so good.
I am so on Spacey's side the whole movie, and it never wavers.
Well, but that's part of the thing with those kinds of characters. I mean, I know you're making a bit, but seriously, it's like
Not really. I'm like, he's doing art, and I appreciate it. I don't care what. It's the same way I'm on Hannibal's side in Hannibal. I'm like, do more awesome murder art.
For me, the part that makes them kind of relatable, not relatable is a strong word, but like sympathetic, is kind of like the Thanos situation where you're like, there has to be some kind of truth to what they're saying, and they're taking it too far. So it's difficult because you're like, I have to combat you on what you're doing, but I can't combat you on the elements of what you're talking about. Yeah, the spirit of your problem. That's society, because everyone knows that society is corrupt and evil and awful, and we're almost better off with something else. Back to what do you call it? Under the Silver Lake, there's a huge theme of that, to where the character, it's like the first time I ever saw the movie kind of go, oh, I guess you guys are right. Okay, I'll just leave.
I support A24's decision to basically kill the release of Under the Silver Lake, because those 3 women on Twitter were right. It was definitely sexist.
What's funny? I'm already hearing about Dune.
Great.
They're mad that Jessica. Are you guys familiar with Dune at all?
I know Villeneuve is doing it, and that my man Big Dave is in it, and that's all I need.
There is basically like a warrior nun class of these people called Bene Gesserits, and they're all women. And one of them has left the nunnery to go be the wife of this guy who controls this very powerful house, the Atreides house. And so there's already people complaining that they're like, it's anti-women because she is more powerful than him, she should be running things or whatever. And it's like, so we had the teaser trailer plays before Tenet, and we haven't even had the wide release of the teaser trailer, and there's already it's sexist and capitalist and anti-Muslim and whatever, which is funny because it's like a massive the book series and the every kind of movie adaptation or whatever and show that they've done, it's a massive critique of capitalism. So it's super funny that it's like people are already, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, well, in the same way, Under the Silver Lake, it's not sexist. It's like it's satire. It's completely satire.
Also, you never are on his side when he's doing something weird. The other problem too is it's difficult because all these women throw themselves at him, so you can't necessarily I was seeing people who were talking about how sex crazed he was, and I'm like, I don't even ever see sex crazed behavior from him throughout the movie. Every woman immediately wants to have sex with him, so it's like he's a regular guy who's not. Yeah,
he's like,
no,
okay,
no, thank you.
Yeah.
It's very strange. The other thing too is I normally am not like this. Like for instance, I have a friend who thought in Joker that almost most of the movie didn't happen. It was all in his mind, and I kind of hate those interpretations. Because then it's like, well, then why is there a movie?
It's such a cop out. It's so. It's
and why did we watch all that?
It's a bit of a cliche. Yeah, it's definitely a cliche, but I think.
But in this movie, I had a hard time because in this one, I do feel like in Under the Silver Lake, I feel like most of that didn't happen. The big line that got me with that is when he said that he had been seeing these kinds of codes ever since he was 10, and I'm like, if that's not a way for you to interpret that the kid has just had lifelong schizophrenia,
he's just schizophrenic. Yeah,
he seems like a paranoid schizophrenic. Almost everything about how he behaves is like that. There's also weird things about him that don't line up with the rest of his character. He has Huey energy from The Boys. He has this very I'm just a regular guy who kind of sucks at everything, but he whoops ass like it's on sale. He has no problem putting hands on anybody, and he's actually relatively skilled at it. When he's whooping Jesus's ass, he is very skilled at it, and and those are things that never get resolved, which are just very interesting. But I think some of those are kind of just red herrings in the movie that make you talk about them later. But yeah, so this Batman thing, though, I'm really excited about it. I know you guys have kept up more than the average person. There's still a lot of people who only think that, Robert Pattinson is the guy from Twilight. And keeping up on his career,
it's still his finest work, but he's done other stuff.
Certainly.
Yeah.
I don't think we've seen it yet. Have we, Scoot?
What?
Have you seen Twilight? I haven't seen it yet.
I believe I've seen the last two.
Okay, but you haven't seen the
Wow.
original.
No.
Okay.
So when are we doing the watch party?
Well, apparently,
I
we're
saw the
supposed to.
last two at a thing like a theater in Vancouver basically does Mystery Science Theater.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So like three comedians joke over it. So I've seen the last two Twilights that way.
Nice.
Okay.
And
That
that's
sounds like a
the
good
only
experience.
It is very fun. There's a thing in the last Twilight which, if I was a Twilight fan, and I imagine there were some at the time, they were very popular movies. I would have lost my mind and and yeah, I would have torn down the movie screen.
I like how you're trying really hard not to spoil Twilight.
Guys, we can't. Look, I'm not going to come here on a podcast in 2020 and spoil a pivotal scene from Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 2.
Also,
I wouldn't do that.
From everyone who's like, anyone who's ever going to watch those movies who would care about spoilers has well seen them already.
No, there's one guy whose day I just made.
He's like, oh, thank God. I keep putting it off. It's on my list. I swear to God, I want to watch this so bad. I haven't gotten around to it. I saw all the 50 Shades of Grey first. Have you guys seen The Boys?
Yeah, I haven't seen the
New 3 episodes.
the 3 new episodes of season 2, and I've seen season 1.
Are you waiting for?
I haven't seen any of it, but I've seen a lot of trailers.
Yeah.
I'm not waiting for the whole season.
There are a lot of trailers.
Got to it.
Yeah, I'm going to start doing reviews like episode by episode because there's a fair amount to unpack. And I'm so excited about it. I just watched it recently. We talked about this last time. And I freaking love this show. I really... It's not perfect, but almost nothing is. But there's little things here and there. But I love the show so much. It's so great.
Yeah, no, it rocks. Like, conceptually, it's so cool. And they really go the extra mile beyond the concept to making it interesting and thought-provoking, as opposed to just like, hey, what if the Avengers were assholes? Which is fun in itself.
Well, the showrunner brought up a great point. He was like, the show can never be parody. It can't. If it ever turns into Airplane about superhero movies, then the show sucks immediately. So it needs to actually be its own show. You need to have people who, if they don't watch those other ones, can still be like, yeah, this is a story that stands on its own. I don't need to know who Superman is to understand the jokes in this or whatever.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. I think the other thing that matters is it's a lot like what Star Wars used to get right, which is that it is a show that is real. Well, Firefly, it's completely comprised out of these characters. So if the characters stay interesting and you enjoy watching them on screen, then the show stays good. I think the characters come far before the plot, which is relatively simple most of the time.
Yeah. Did you ever see mid 2000s Comedy Central cartoon Drawn Together?
I have.
It didn't look like my taste.
Okay, Gael, you have?
Yes.
Homelander, the top superhero in The Boys, is Captain Hero.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what's fun too is
it's
obviously
great.
his name just being Homelander, obviously like a play on Homeland Security.
Yeah.
They were going to give him a red cape, and then they came up with the idea of giving him the American flag.
No,
as
give him the
cape,
flag.
Yeah, exactly. All that kind of stuff. It's so well. And what's cool too is that it's not a parody, right? What it feels like, and it doesn't even feel like it's trying to say if everyone was a superhero, they would be evil. What it's just saying is that what if we gave humans superpowers? What would humans do? What if we gave
humans superpowers, and what if you've had these powers your entire life, and that's all you know? And at a point, you do start thinking of yourself as a god, and standard human life is so much less to you.
When one of the main villains of the story is a corporation.
Yeah.
And so it's like, what if all of those properties that Disney owned were actual people? You'd still have Disney, and Disney would do everything it could to protect them. So Superman would go and defeat Zod, but kill a bunch of people in the meantime, and Disney would be fast at work with all of its lawyers, making sure that no one gets sued and people get paid off, paltry sums of money, and that those people get sued if they say anything, and NDAs and stuff like that. Like,
sign the NDA, take your $45,000.
Yeah, exactly. It's so funny because it's like in that same episode, they start talking about like the billions of dollars that they're spending on this, that, and the other thing. It's like $45,000.
$45,000
for the life of my girlfriend.
That's the number.
But I am enjoying it. Yeah, the new season's good.
Nice. One
thing I'm really digging is that they spent a little time in the first part of the season dealing with the deep, and I've been excited to talk to you guys about this. Just because we've talked about how the big problem they had with Bryce from 13 Reasons Why is that when they wanted to do a face turn, they just did a hard face turn.
So hard. The hardest I've ever. I got
was,
whiplash.
And I was saying that if you were going to try to handle something like this, where you had a guy who sexually assaulted somebody, and then you wanted to start playing with like the reasoning and that he is damaged, and so he does damaging behavior to people because of how damaged he is. Like the Deep is like the Bryce that we deserved. I feel like. And we're spending a lot of time like really unpacking like why he is how he is, and that he hates himself as much as everyone else. And I just buy it this time because we started doing it very early, because even season 1 they do that quite a bit.
Yeah. Back to Drawn Together, Gael. The Deep in The Boys is Toot if she were Aquaman.
Oh my god. That's a lot.
He's definitely an Aquaman allegory. All of them have a pretty hardcore allegory, except for probably Black Noir. You could make, which I love that he's Black Noir.
Okay, Black Noir is an awesome name.
Black.
Double black.
But he's cool
None
because
so black.
You could make the comparison to Batman, but I really think he's a lot closer to who's that, like Shadow Storm or something, the guy from G.I. Joe.
Oh,
The
yeah, I
ninja
know
guy.
what you mean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's a lot more like that.
No, he's definitely he's not Batman.
Yeah, some people have said, because it's hard. Because if you were gonna do a 1-for-1 with Justice League, almost everybody has like a direct comparison. I guess Starlight too. She's a little hard. She almost has like a Jubilee thing going on.
I mean, you can say Wonder Woman. No, because
it's
Maeve
definitely
is Wonder Woman.
Yeah, Maeve is definitely.
You're
Wonder
right.
Woman.
Yeah, I guess she's Jubilee.
Yeah, it's a totally different franchise and a different distributor, but it is what it is. All right, well, before we get too far into this, I also would be remiss if we didn't get into. So you guys haven't seen Tenet yet? What the hell, man? I'm joking. I know you guys are all.
Hey, fuck you.
Well, have you seen anything in the theaters at all? Have you guys checked anything out,
No.
or have you seen? So it's interesting.
It's only in theaters, right?
Yes, it is only in theaters.
Yeah, no, I'm not watching it.
I saw that there's a Korean cam rip on torrents. I'm like, I can wait.
It's interesting because Corey Coleman from Double Toasted was saying, he was like, because he feels like you guys were. Some people are kind of in a soft protest of just the idea of going to theater, and he was saying like the weird part was that it felt more.
Also,
safe
there's
than,
barely any open here anyway. Like,
well, that's a question too. I know that also American theaters work a little different too. Like what do you call it? Adam was talking about how impressed he was or not impressed, but that he was like, oh, American theaters have like Lazy Boys, and we've had that shit forever. Like that's normal to me now.
When we got our first theater with nice seats, it was pandemonium.
That's right, riots in the streets.
Yeah.
But what was cool is that like they've done it. They honestly have done a really good job with like everything is basically touchless now. You like walk up with your phone and there's like a scanner. Then you hop into the theater and the spacing is done where if you buy a seat, then automatically the 2 seats next to you are empty. But when I went all 3 times, and the most people that was ever in the theater was 20 in like an IMAX size theater.
Okay.
So that was because the first time I was kind of like, leery about it and kind of nervous, but there was like 15 people in the thing. So then I had some roommates who I was like, dude, you got to see this movie. And so I went and took them. And then another one had come back from, being gone for a week. And I was like, dude, you got to see this too. So I took him or whatever. So, but yeah, it's,
yeah. So given you've seen it 3 times, I imagine you like it.
I love it, but it's probably not his, I don't know. It's tough. It's hard because I think this is the kind of movie where getting too complicated starts to give you like a loss of returns on investment. And so Inception is kind of plays like it's complicated, even though it's really not. And it's fun because you're kind of like having to actively watch and be like, okay, what's going on? Okay, this is happening. Okay, this is interesting. But in Tenet, it almost kind of feels like you're doing math homework. And so you're like, okay, shit. All right, who is, and then what? And so part of seeing it multiple times wasn't just, hey, my friends.
I mean, when you say that, I probably speak for Gael as well. I'm like, we like math homework.
I think you will. And
I was doing long division practice like 2 days ago online. I was like, I feel like brushing up on my line because I like Countdown. So like I gotta make sure I can do long division on Countdown.
I love Countdown.
Yeah.
Well, I don't like Countdown. I like 8 out of 10 Cast does Countdown.
Yeah, that's what I watch.
Okay. You don't watch the pensioner version?
No, I don't. No, I don't watch Nick Fury, but
for olds.
I will once I run out of 8 out of 10 Cats episodes, because I don't know. A lot of it obviously is going to be the comedy, but sometimes I just skip over that part because I want to get to the fucking anagrams.
Well, even if you don't skip it, it's still like it's nice that both parts are fun.
Yeah, both parts can be. Sometimes one is better than the other. Like some episodes, like the comedy is much better. Some episodes, the anagrams, and it depends on what you want in the day.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it's a very. I think you guys will enjoy this, and it's kind of like Under the Silver Lake, except everything is like does actually have a meaning and you can piece it all together. So what was fun for me was I saw it the first time and I was like, I mostly got it, but I knew there was stuff I missed. I saw it the second time and I was like, okay, got it. Now that I get to put the things I get aside and lock them in, now I can focus on the parts I was confused on. And I was like, yeah, I got it. And then I saw it the third time and I was like, oh shit, I didn't. Now there's more things I get. So I was wrong, actually. There's now I mean, I've always felt this way, so I could be wrong again. But I finally think I could make a video and tell you what happened from start to end. But it's not easy. And spoiler free, he does timey-wimey stuff all the time, right? Like Inception is pretty timey-wimey, so is Memento. Yeah. And so this one is, think of time like he's doing a time palindrome. That's what's very fun about this, is you're having to look at so many things from time working forward and backwards simultaneously. So you're having to like, okay, so this front forwarding part is happening because of this, and these things happened because of this direction, but then the things happening backwards. And so part of what will happen is something will happen backwards and inform the people who are moving forward. So they like you already have information basically from someone who went through something backwards to try to then go forward again. So it's I think you guys will, it's nice to get like a brain workout with something, but have it actually go somewhere.
Yeah, to have it actually pay off.
Like I've talked about it before, I love Magic the Gathering. I think part of it is I feel like there's almost no upper end of how complicated it is. So wherever I feel like engaging with something that's going to be challenging, like it will meet me there, which is really nice. And there's other things that you can, get into where it's like, I don't know, it feels like you're running your engine at 60 or 70%. So it's nice to have a movie where you actually are like, no, I really am like, and it makes you much more engaged in what's happening because you're trying so, hard to keep up on what's happening. And then that's completely aside from the fact that's also just very fun. Like I feel like if I didn't know anything that was happening in the movie, I would still be having a blast. And I think Inception's like that too. I think there's a lot of people who ended up feeling like they didn't get what was going on, but it was just a fun ride. And someone brought it up recently, and I think they're totally right, is that he feels like he's like an art house guy who has loads and loads of money to make movies with. So these are the kinds of movies that you could have seen like an art house guy make, but they just don't have the cash on hand to actually do it.
I'm curious to see it for sure. I might, maybe once it comes out, like somewhere where it's not in the public space, I'll check it out for sure.
Yeah.
We know everyone, like all of us can easily think of examples of films where the plot is difficult to follow. Or like, and it's like that's
Paul Blart 2.
Oh yeah,
comes to mind.
Yeah,
oh,
I just mean ones where obviously like it's deliberate. So like Primer, Inception.
Okay,
well, maybe not Inception as
I
much.
compared it to Primer. Actually, I think that's a very astute example.
But can we think of, because I was just thinking of like, let's make a scale with Primer at one end, but what would be at the other? What is the easiest film you can think of to follow? The first thing I thought of was like it has to be like a children's movie or like Cool Cat or something. But some of those films you can't really describe the plot to. Like from experience.
Great point.
It's difficult to sometimes describe the plot to
because they're
overly
total
simplistic.
Nonsense.
Exactly.
Yeah, you just want something. Maybe it's probably some kind of like adventure movie or something, which just like super linear, go along, find the MacGuffin, save the day.
And the challenges are normally thing A popped up, we dealt with thing A, boom, move along. Okay, now thing B.
It's like the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, exactly right. It's not that there's like this huge. The only big overarching conflict is that we find out that the wizard is BS and that you had it within yourself the whole time. Yeah, it's easy. It's very easy to name movies that are not complicated and are the one on that scale. It's not easy to name what like the quintessential one would be.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to find.
Or
right?
the primer version of it. If primer.
So you can say
Primer's
on a
high,
scale from like X to Primer. What would X be?
Because there's lots of complicated movies, but they're not all of them are like Primer. Like Primer is
because even the Wizard of Oz is like, I mean, okay, no, that's like a very linear film. Like that's a film that's
a good example.
Almost that's very easy to like describe the plot to. But I'm like trying to think of like romantic.
You know what the most linear film is?
Tell me.
Gods of Egypt.
There's no way.
It is just thing to thing to thing.
Okay, but like
end.
If I challenge you to describe the plot to that for me, there's no way you get it.
Okay, you know what? Like, After Earth.
There's no way you can give me the plot to that film.
Not in a million years. But
I
feel like it was very linear.
You could do After Earth.
After Earth, maybe. Like I can't describe the plot to that film either, other than like Jaden Smith is stranded on a planet and then things happen and he's trying to, it's a coming of age story. Like
you just said you couldn't
Karate Kid actually, like the first Karate Kid maybe. But what I'm thinking of is
the Jaden Smith Karate Kid.
Here's like I'm trying to find a movie that's like a 90s romantic comedy, right? Like something that is like that formulaic, where it's like it's literally
Sleepless in Seattle.
Like like that kind of film. You've Got Mail. I don't know, like.
those types of films. Something with Matthew
Right.
McConaughey in it or something.
Well, I'm
You know,
also
like-
trying to think something that's not challenging because I think Sleepless in Seattle and You've Got Mail. There's like interesting.
It's like slightly challenging. Yeah.
Yeah, how
Well,
about some like McConaughey, Kate Hudson horse shit?
Yeah,
how
exactly.
About your,
Like
how
Failure
about
to Launch.
Failure to Launch, How to Lose a Guy in
Guy,
10
yeah.
Days.
Because the thing is like with You've Got Mail, there's some other challenges going on where it's like, he is lying to her and pretending he's someone else. And he's also the one who's like destroying her business. So there's like these kind of complex emotions going on.
Yeah, there are, I guess there are layers.
Not that it's plot complicated, but I'm just trying to think if I'm trying to find the easiest, to absorb where it still makes sense. Because like you said, most kids' movies just end up being completely nonsense.
It could be a
but I think,
McConaughey
like,
rom-com.
yeah,
That might be the way
McConaughey.
to go.
Which how
Yeah.
funny of a turnaround as he had. He's had such a similar experience to Robert Pattinson, where like for a long time he used to be just the schlock guy. I would see him and
Yeah.
know I didn't want to see that movie.
Yeah, then he won an Oscar.
Yeah,
And
and
then-
deserved it.
Yeah, and yeah, he was on that turn not very long before he won the Oscar. He did like 2 or 3 real movies and then won the Oscar, and then from there on was basically a prestige guy.
Well, and I think for a lot of guys it was like True Detective.
True Detective, but that's like not even. True Detective was after the Oscar.
No, I know. I'm saying for a lot of
Yeah.
people, like the layman.
Oh, sure, that's what like turned.
Yeah, I
People's
think
opinion. Yeah, yeah.
people who cared more about movies to the point where they would actually see a movie like or a show like True Detective and like have HBO, but weren't quite there where they wanted to go out of their way to watch Dallas Buyers Club.
Right.
Yeah. Jared Leto's another one that's really hard. Is like his, what? Again, just like Robert Pattinson, but almost the other direction time wise.
Kind of the other way, yeah.
He had done loads of really good performances, and then his
Yeah.
newest one is his biggest one, and then that's the one that sucked. And so everyone
Yeah.
hates him. Like it's like almost the exact opposite career trajectory, which is unfortunate. Because Dallas Buyers Club, Jared Leto's in that. Obviously, Requiem for a Dream.
He won supporting actor for that, right? They both won Oscars. McConaughey
I
and
think
Leto.
he might have. I think he might have. I can
Yeah.
look. I mean, he deserved it. He's genuinely very good. I mean, I just watched Blade Runner again because one of my roommates hadn't seen it, and then I wanted him to. He's excited about Dune because he's a huge Dune book franchise guy, and so I wanted him to understand who was making Dune and how, like, if you watch Blade Runner 2049, he's exactly who you want making Dune.
Yeah.
And so I was showing him that, and it was like, hey, look, that's Jared Leto killing it. Like, he's super entertaining in this movie. He's super good. So it's rough. It's really rough. I think that movie is more of a disaster of bad ideas than bad, acting ability.
Which one?
I think Suicide Squad as the
Oh,
Joker.
okay, yeah.
I think that it's more born out of just bad ideas. People had ideas and made choices. I just don't think the choices were good. But it wasn't because he wasn't good at acting.
I think it's interesting that the actors often will get the brunt of that. They'll always get the.
I know. I agree.
But like I want that though. Like I think that's how it ought to be, right? It sucks, but that's how it because like from my perspective, I would love to just chew up the scenery in some terrible film and like just overact the shit out of it. Like I would love I don't care like if the world hates me or thinks I'm a terrible actor. I just want to do that.
It'd be super fun.
I want to be
just go full Lithgow on something.
what's
Exactly.
fun-
I want to be
what's
a
fun is
clown.
when you
Like
can-
that sounds like so much fun. Like I'll
What's
take
fun is
that
when you can
trade
do it
off.
and people love it.
That's like
that's really
obviously
nice
like
too.
a
That's the
win-win.
dream.
Nicholson. I mean, Nicholson got away with that forever.
Yeah, for sure.
People if you walk into, I have like the walk into Walmart test. It's like if you walked into Walmart and asked everybody what they thought about Jack Nicholson and Batman '89, they'd be like, amazing.
Yeah.
And it's like maybe they don't remember, or maybe they just and context matters. We've talked about this before. It's like earlier you were saying something about, I forgot exactly what it was, but it was saying how like the context of the tone of the movie matters so much. The Jim Carrey Riddler is ridiculous and in my opinion not great, but it fits
in the
But
film.
for that
Right.
movie,
Totally
if we did
fits
a
in the film.
Dano Riddler in that movie, you'd be like, the fuck is this?
Yeah.
how did this guy get into this movie?
Which is funny because that's actually a thing. Like you can go to TV tropes and they talk about that idea. A good example is there's a French cartoon show called Wak Fu, and 90% of it is like as saccharine and just fun and lighthearted and friendship is magic kind of like concepts that you could get. And then there's this one villain for like one arc whose name is Nox, and it's so dark and serious and it does not fit at all.
Did they have a guest writer for
It's
this
so
one or something?
strange, and it's kind of fun though. It's the only reason I care about that show is because there is this really strange out of tone character. And so I've been trying to look for more examples of that, where it's like, yeah, who's a character who just feels like he's in the wrong universe? Like, when did this guy show up? None of us are like this. Even the other direction, if you have something really dark and then like this one really just overly, flowery kind of characters in there, mixes it up. And there's definitely like cartoons and stuff, you'll see that, especially if there's like an arc or something. Mm-hmm. But yeah, man, I mean, it's going to be interesting. The other thing too is, back to this Batman real fast, I'm looking at the cast list. It's just like Andy Serkis as Alfred is an interesting choice. I feel like maybe
that is interesting.
I think maybe they're well. So the director is the guy who did all those Planet of the Apes movies. So it makes a little bit of sense that him and Andy Serkis obviously
he gets Andy Serkis. Is he in a mocap suit? Is that
gotta be?
Is he doing
gotta
mocap
Alfred?
So here's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that he's in a mocap suit and then they CGI him just to look like Michael Caine again.
You know what?
Yes.
Am I like? Oh man, like. I was coming off when I saw the new the now very old Christopher Nolan Batman films. I had come off of the 90s films, obviously the Schumacher and the Tim Burton and the stuff. And I really liked the Alfred in those movies. Like I liked the decision to make him like a floppy English guy.
Yeah.
And so when they got like Cockney Michael Caine doing his thing, I was like, this doesn't work. Like
That's
I just like really didn't buy Michael Caine in that role at all, even though I love those movies.
I didn't have a strong opinion until they did the callback part in the first movie where Batman is being held under like some log or something and it's on fire and Alfred comes back to save him and he's like, why do we fall down, sir? And like I started crying. And from then on, they had me sold. I was like, Michael Caine, be my grandpa.
Michael Caine.
Michael Caine.
It's like, why is he Cockney? He's a fucking butler. He should be like RP as fuck.
Well, because they changed it up. They tried to do the version where he's the SAS guy. Yeah. The other one has always been like a foppish butler, and this one they went for.
Well, actually, even the foppish butler was like SAS. Like even like if you see Batman the Animated Series, it was also like foppish butler, but also secret spy. So they
but
kind
also
of like
could get shit done. Yeah,
I stand corrected. All right.
I'm curious to see what Andy Serkis will bring to the role.
Well, and he's so young. That's what's going to be weird for me.
Oh, don't worry. He'll age it up.
Oh, maybe because remember what's his
he was
face,
like 1,000 as Gollum. He'll be fine if he can sell that. He'll be able to sell Alfred. He played Scar. What?
No, who played Scar?
Chiwetel Ejiofor. Oh, the old one. It was fucking Jeremy Irons.
Jeremy Irons, right? Isn't Jeremy Irons the Alfred in the Zack Snyder movie?
Fuck.
Yes,
there was a Zack Snyder Batman. Which one was that?
Batman versus Superman.
Oh yeah, I didn't watch that.
Oh, well, it's terrible, but they had Jeremy Irons, and Jeremy Irons having, like, salt and pepper hair.
Oh, I love Jeremy Irons, so I'll watch it.
No, I love him, too. No, you know what's hard about that movie? So I've actually made a video about this. The most frustrating part about Batman versus Superman is that there's a very good movie hiding in it. And
I believe that.
So many of the well, the thing is, like, Suicide Squad's so bad, I don't think I could save it. But I really think that I could go in and like do a re-edit of Batman versus Superman and have at least a very passable movie. There's some really interesting themes. I love how they do. Like, one thing I like about The Dark Knight with Heath Ledger is that they did the smart thing of that Batman is physically strong. So they had to attack him from an angle with a character who's not just going to try to fist fight him. Mm-hmm. And so that happened in Batman versus Superman, where Superman is so... he can punch his way out of every problem. So the main actual problem he has in that movie is that the U.S. government is saying, hey, you're acting like a terrorist, basically, and you need to like humble yourself, from the God position and come and talk to us and actually work things out. And they're basically like character assassinating him to the public. And I thought that was genius because like that's one of the only problems he can't really laser eyes his way out of,
Yeah, I agree.
It has to be a non-physical issue.
And then they ruin it by, it felt like literally, a suit shows up at the end and says, hey, what if there's a big, what if we do Doomsday? And they have to fist fight. And then that's how we decide the end of the movie. It's like, God damn it, So those parts are so good. The other thing being really good is Batman himself having a very real concern that if there is he's so powerful that if there's a 1% chance that this guy turns on us, then we have to treat it as an absolute certainty or else the world ends. This guy could control everything. And so Batman going through, and they borrowed heavily from a very good comic series with the Dark Knight Returns, where he finds a way to weaken Superman kind of down to his level so that they can have more of a fair fight. Like a lot of those things are actually really cool and really interesting, but there's just so much. It's also like almost 3 hours long, so I really think you could cut an hour out of crap. Well, what is it?
Every frame needed to be in that 3 hours and 9 minutes.
There's also things they over-explain. I'm telling you, it felt like
restrained.
It feels like rewrites, dude, because I was watching, there was, for instance, there's a part where Diana finds a encrypted thing from Lex Luthor that has a video. It has like proof of a video of her from a million years ago, you know, from the 1800s, or actually World War One, proving that she's like a metahuman or whatever. And she's like, oh shit. But then what you see is that there's other files, and the symbols of the other guys from the Justice League are on those files. That's very clever. That was kind of cool. But then, of course, at the end of the movie, someone else has to reopen it to go and click and open every one of those files. And I'm like,
what's all this?
Dude, I swear it feels like a suit was like, but they won't understand. Like,
there's so much of that in movies. Like honestly, the number one studio note is, will people understand this?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, right now it's show me whatever political thing, like social issue that you're fitting into your thing, and then is it understandable? I think Max Landis was talking about that, where he's like, if you're in Hollywood right now trying to like pitch a script or whatever, the first thing they're going to ask you is like, how does this fit into Black Lives Matter? How does this fit into, you know, something like that? You have to have some kind of angle. So now the challenge is figuring out how to write a really good script where you're not sacrificing the integrity of it to shoehorn
to just do that
some kind of feminist
that wasn't even your intent. Yeah,
it's hard, you know. There's so, you know, I don't know, it's a thing going on. I'm trying to see how long the runtime this movie is. 152 minutes long, so it's just like
2.5.
Yeah, so it's just kind of half an hour out, man. You know, it didn't need Doomsday at all. It's just it's rough. I want to do like the Topher Grace thing and go, was it him who redid the Phantom Menace, the Phantom edit?
Oh, I have no idea.
Did Topher Grace re-edit the Phantom Menace? And
he did back in like the early 2000s or something. As like a college project, as a writing project.
As a writing project.
Or like learning editing or something like that. Yeah, he said he thought it would be like a real, and his friends all swear that it's amazing, but he like didn't want to release it because he didn't want to seem like he was like throwing shade, which makes me very sad. But I've heard of leaks or whatever, so I just never got around to trying to find it. But I've heard it's like substantially better. It still seems hard because there's just so little to work with in that movie because so much of it sucks.
Yeah, what was that dwarf movie that we saw that apparently has a cinematic edit that's amazing?
The Hobbit.
No,
I think it's The Hobbit.
Fuck you, Scoot.
Scoot quietly under his breath. I don't know any dwarf movies.
No, like the fucking we did Animal Pals on it. Like
Tiptoes.
Yeah,
Tiptoes. Oh, got it. Yeah. Did you feel like there was a good movie hiding in there?
No. Like someone said that there's a director's
There's a director's cut that exists
that brings you to weep or whatever. Like
that is very different and not as stupid.
Was it fucking? I keep forgetting his name. Like literally the only guy from Game of Thrones.
Peter Dinklage.
Oh, Peter Dinklage.
Yeah, Peter Dinklage. I think he said that. Like, there's like
he said that.
Yeah. He said that. Like, there's a.
He said that, and like I guess the director has said it, and I don't know why we've never seen it. And I think even maybe that version was the one that was submitted to film festivals.
Yeah. Do the Germans have a word for when someone you really respect says something that you're like, I just can't believe that?
They certainly do, but I don't know what it is.
Because God, I respect his opinion so much, but man, that I can't imagine that there's. I mean, you've seen the movie, you did the review thing on it.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you betcha.
There's almost not the quality frame in it.
There's no way you can re-edit it.
Right.
Like there would have to be like missing footage. That is,
That's the only reason I haven't done the Batman one yet, is that I don't have. The ending I want is the ending from The Dark Knight Returns, where Batman does beat Superman, but he chooses not to kill him and says, just remember, like, everyone's telling me to trust you, and so I'm going to give you a chance, but remember that I could have, so if you get your head up your ass again, like, I'm back for you. And also he asked him the question too, like, who are they going to send to stop you? They're sending you to stop me now. So I think that would be the best way to end that movie, rather than, wait, we have mothers that have the same name? Well, that means everything. It's rough, but I don't know. Yeah, there's some parts in there, but Zack Snyder, I don't know. So I made a video talking about the Zack Snyder cut and how I thought there wasn't any way to salvage that movie because it had been shot already, and there's no way there's a whole different movie. But Zack Snyder and his people keep saying that they basically made an entire movie and that Whedon came in and reshot like 90% of it. So maybe there possibly is an entirely different movie.
I mean, Snyder's talking a big game. I've probably said it before. I just think it's really funny that in some universe, Zack Snyder is better than Joss Whedon.
Me too. That's what I've been saying. I'm just like,
that's the shocking part. I'm like, I can't. Oh man, we need to release this cut by this worst director.
Literally,
please.
Yeah. In what universe is he saving the day from Joss Whedon? That is madness. Yeah. Like everyone. Whatever, we'll see. I just don't think he's ever made a fantastic film. Like, I don't think even 300 is
sounds
as good as I
like
remembered
somebody didn't see Sucker Punch.
That was the first time where I was like, oh no.
That was such an oh no.
Yeah, I loved 300. I was like 16.
Snyder mostly had
cred.
cred. Yeah, he mostly had cred going into Sucker Punch
Yes.
because people like 300.
Yeah.
People like Watchmen.
Yeah,
You know, I think some big Watchmen fan
that was the
did.
disappointment too. Is I was like,
Left
it's better than bad, but it's not as good as I was expecting. I thought, oh my god, this is gonna be so great. 300 was
And
so
then
great.
Sucker Punch, let's make Rape Inception.
You know what?
And you know what? Rape Inception could be good. It's just that movie isn't good.
Oh no, it could be good. It was not, but
You know what? I just realized that 300 might just be like the middle point of the 2000s where we could draw a line. I think
Might
you
be
could
the
be
one.
like, I really,
Might be the
honestly,
one.
now that I think about it, like I think there's pre 300 and post. I think like that film for its time was perfect. Like genuinely, without even like with no exaggeration and no hint of irony.
One thing I'll say is that it came right before the concerns about toxic masculinity.
Right.
Thank God.
So that was a very if it came like 5 years later, there would have been a lot of people who were like, I don't want to see another movie about a bunch of white men fighting and blah, blah, killing a bunch of brown people. You know,
I don't know.
300 was the number of abs in that movie.
the number of digital abs in that movie.
Ooh. No, like you guys have seen like the behind the scenes and stuff, like how they film like the choreography and shit. Like there was some actually like legit impressive stuff going on from a cinematic perspective in that film.
Oh yeah, I don't want to say it's a bad movie.
I don't
It's just
like,
not as good as I
think it's-
remembered. I remember when I was like 16 thinking, oh my god, this is the peak of, you know.
I would
film.
love to rewatch it because I haven't seen it since I was like, you know, a teenager probably.
We should actually, yeah.
But because like I think like that has to be the best Zack Snyder film.
I think it is. I still think it is. I think
It
the other
must be,
thing,
right?
The
Yeah.
other thing too is that like it's cool when you do that kind of cinematography once, but when he started doing it like 4 times, it's
Yeah,
like, dude,
it just became it became a genre for him, and it's like, like it fit for 300, but it's not gonna fit for everything just because it fit for that film, right? No, that like it worked because like in that film, like the cinematography, there was something otherworldly about it. Like there was something
100%.
really creepy, and like kind of
Absolutely.
it fit for the time. It was like they're doing some time period, and like at that point, the only time you see like what do you call it, like period pieces or stuff that's set in the past, it's always like lit in a very similar way. It's always like soft lighting and like you know, gowns and shit.
desaturated.
But like yeah, and like this was like really like hyper stylized, and for for what it was going for, like you know, it was so yeah. I mean, so much good stuff happened, but it turned out it was maybe just like the stars lining up. Like that's just what he wanted to do, and it happened to fit the style.
Yep.
So you know, it's unfortunate because you know he's kind of a bit of a hack. But
I think
yeah,
of him like
still think that
George
film's
Lucas
good.
almost, where it's like they kind of got lucky with that first big thing that put their name on the map, and then
Right.
from then on they just had so much goodwill that they keep getting to spend, and everyone keeps thinking like, well, maybe if we give him another chance, he'll do another 300. But I think that like,
But
DC,
instead, it's a lot of Howard the Ducks.
it's a lot of Howard the Duck. Well, again, like, someone was bringing up a great point. Oh, it was on Sardonicast. They're saying how this the Batman trailer looks dark and gritty in a completely different kind of way than the Zack Snyder dark and gritty. You know, and I've always said Zack Snyder to me feels like that. You know, he's like a Hot Topic exec or something. You know, it's like the kinds of things that a kid who shops at Hot Topic all the time would think is really cool and dark and gritty and edgy is the kind of thing he goes for. And it was the same problem with all of his movies, Sucker Punch and stuff. I forgot, I had a specific movie I was thinking of where it was like, it's just that look with that style and the way that they talk and everything is just so cringy. And a lot of people were copying him for a while too. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember, like Spartacus was trying so hard to be 300.
I have not seen it.
There was
I mean, not
like that.
there's like I assume you mean like a new Spartacus. Like I know there was,
No, I
like,
mean it's
some-
Kirk Douglas.
I was trying. So
Yeah.
I forgot to tell you. So yeah, I saw Tenet, so now I believe in time travel.
Okay.
No, yeah, there was
Oh, that's a good messaging.
the
Yeah.
new Spartacus was 2009 or something like that, and so it was, you know, what, 3 or 4 years after 300. 300
Yeah.
was like probably 06 or something like that.
Yeah, maybe even 04, 05.
So I am curious
Yeah.
what it will take for people to not ride his jock so hard anymore.
Who what's his face?
This is
Snyder?
Snyder. Yeah.
Snyder. I think if they still are, they're ride or die. They're
Yeah, for
that's
sure.
fair.
nothing's gonna turn him off.
Well, and also, like I've said in one of my videos where I was like, if I was going to hire him ever, I would hire him like probably solely as a cinematographer because I wanted that look. And
Yeah.
I think there's just a lot of people out there where all these movies I'm saying I didn't like that much. Like there are going to be guys where those were all their favorite movies. So
Sure.
it makes sense
Oh,
that
yeah.
those guys would exist and just be like, no, man, it's great. I love Zack Snyder. He's the best.
Yeah. I like it when the whole superhero movie looks like mud has been rubbed on the lens.
They kind of do. Like even 300, I'm like, I still think that that's probably a little too much in that direction. It's a little too much saturated. I mean, too much contrast.
I mean, I wouldn't want it any other way. I wouldn't I don't want that film. That film to me is
Could
really,
you please stop disparaging Gael's favorite movie?
It's my favorite film. No, like in the same way that I wouldn't want Underworld any other way. You know, like to me they're in the same kind of category of films that really took it to the extreme and on some levels succeeded. On some levels society decided, I like this movie, make more of this please. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like
yeah.
I don't know, like if it was any less or any more restrained, I think it wouldn't have had the impact that it did. So I'm really glad. Like I like over the top shit. I like it when artists take like insane risks and like that don't make sense and really in hindsight were terrible ideas but still end up working out. Yeah,
but damn it, you went for it.
It's not enough to make me like really want it different. I do though disagree with Underworld because I do think that Underworld actually has potential to be
don't disagree
good.
with Underworld with Gael.
The potential to be very good is what
you're
you
in
said.
a world of hurt.
Yeah, I'm already
right.
a big so I'm a huge White Wolf fan. Like a Vampire the
what that is.
Masquerade. They're a series of role-playing games, and Underworld borrowed heavily from it. Because those guys they did a cool thing where they took loads of they basically just tried to work out the actual like mechanics of like how would werewolves work, how would vampires work like in our modern society. And so I know almost more about world history through the viewpoint that vampires controlled everything that ever happened than
great.
I do about American history.
That's wonderful.
Because it's much more fascinating. It's like, oh, well, there used to be the anarchs and like, Dracula type vampires used to exist where you would be in some small village in, London and you would know that the Duke or whatever was like a vampire. But eventually the Crusades started happening and the, Puritans started coming around. So they had to come up with this idea of the Camarilla, which is like hiding in plain sight. And so they stopped
this
doing
is
all
great.
That. And then there was a
Can we just do this for the rest of the podcast?
Can we just do this?
It's awesome. It's so awesome. And then it was like, there was a splinter group and those guys were called the Anarchs and they ended up, there was like an infighting war because they were like, no, we're fucking monsters. We should be eating these humans in the open. Like, fuck you guys. And then they kind of lost and then they disappeared. But then when they went to the New World later on, they found out that that's actually where they went and they called themselves the Sabbat. And so like the Manifest Destiny was actually powered by vampires who were strong enough to basically help cut through America. And it pushed through this world or whatever. But then the old guys came back, the Camarilla vampires, and they took over America because they had more money coming from like the Vatican and stuff, and it pushed the Sabbat into Mexico and Canada. So like it's all these really fucking
that honestly sounds like the potential for a really good like miniseries or like episodic.
Completely
I think
agree.
You could totally do that.
So it was hard for me with Underworld because then when I went and saw it, I was like, oh my god, they're doing it, and then it was like, oh, they're kind of not doing it.
They're not exactly doing it.
Like no, it's genuinely an awful film. Like it is unambiguously just a really really bad movie.
I totally agree with you though that they're fun.
But it has
very
a
fun.
charm and it
very charming. I agree.
And like it again filled a gap that needed to be filled at the time. People wanted it and it existed, and people liked that it existed. I like that it existed.
Well, and they were good follow-ups
It's a shame
to, like,
that
Blade.
there was nothing better. Yeah.
So so I agree that I don't want them I don't want like that not to exist, but I would like to see someone try like a more earnest approach.
Yeah.
I don't think you get away with it today. Like I think
it's tougher.
It's
way
tough
too
to do
cynical.
It's a little bit too cynical today for you to go for like a. Can you imagine if someone tried to do like a serious like? But this is what the vampires were like. And
I can because The Boys is doing so well.
Okay.
And so I think that if they do it like The Boys, where it's just, part of it is playing things down where you're not, I don't know, just not trying to go so hokey and not trying to go so kind of nerdy and just making it, if you can make it feel like, yeah, this is just real life. You guys have politicians, like this is just different kinds of politicians. I think I don't know. I don't know. It would be, I don't know. It's hard. You just kind of have to see it.
I think The Boys, like you have like, there's the appetite there because you have so much oversaturation of like superhero films. I wish there was an oversaturation of Dan Brown movies and shit, like stuff like that where it's like a plot that makes no sense. That's like, like I would love that if we just got a lot of films like that. And again, like that's why I find it relatively easy to differentiate the 2000s from the 2010s because I associate the 2000s with like Dan Brown around movies, and like
Oh, yeah.
you know, like 300, like after 300 it's like a different time, right? Because that's when, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know, so like I want
Yeah,
it.
it does feel like irony. That kind of irony was invented in like 2010.
Yeah.
And everything before it, you could do these earnest, stupid movies, and now stupid movies are ironic.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think about these days, like what's happening now. It's so hard because almost every billion-dollar movie is a freaking superhero movie these days.
Yeah.
Well, let's do a prediction. What do you guys think the 2020s are gonna like bring as a genre? You know, I think we can safely say, hopefully, that, you know, hopefully the death of the superhero film will be a welcome one. Maybe in
Dude,
3
I
years.
ate so much shit recently for saying that. I was talking about how I think they could maybe save their franchises by going more into genre stuff. We talked about that on the last podcast.
Yeah, we did.
And I made a video just about that, and dude, people were so not ready to hear that. They're like, "What are you talking about? I want 10 more years of this." But I do think
Phase 4.
I know,
10
right?
more years.
10 more years. I do think that fatigue is setting in, and I think
Yeah, I
it's
don't
very
think
similar
there's
to-
any
it's
way
gotta
it's
be,
gonna
yeah.
last.
Yeah, like zombie fatigue, where everyone just
Yeah.
got to the point where it's like, if I see
Zombie,
another
vampire,
fucking
any
zombie,
genre thing like that, you can only make so much of it,
which is hard
until
for Universal
people
because they're
have
trying
enough.
to kickstart their whole dark universe thing, and half
Which
their,
is hilarious.
Their big things are vampires and zombies, which would be really hard for them. So yeah, okay, but no, I love this question. I've been thinking about it a lot, and I don't have a great answer. Like, what could upset the superhero market to become like the next superhero market? Like, what could
I think
we
you
do?
need a really big movie. I think it all starts with a really big, really successful
one
new
big
thing.
movie, yeah.
Right? Something new that hasn't been done, and then everyone just copies it for the rest of the decade.
Dude, I would
We
kill
just
for
haven't-
everyone to try to copy like Chris, freaking what's his face, Inception. guy. Christopher Nolan. I would kill for everyone to try to copy that, and that'd be like the norm. Like, all of our big budget movies were like really smart and interesting.
I would like. I mean, I have to say, like, I haven't seen like some of the more recent Nolan films. Honestly, like I saw his older stuff and I saw the Batman stuff.
Yeah.
And I've seen Inception. I've seen whatever. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm really curious about Tenet because I will go into that film the same way I went into this Charlie Kaufman film to bring it all the way back. Because I like being really critical about people who I think are talented. But there's something in the back of my head that's like, I feel like I almost don't believe it, right? Like, I almost don't believe the hype. Because like, I hate it when shit gets hyped to me. So I don't know. It's weird.
That's fair.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
you
I'll
shouldn't.
get into
I think sycophancy is one of the reasons that the industry is so bad as it is. I think that these superhero movies have gotten away with murder because people are sycophants. I have those friends. I have friends who grew up on comic books, so there's an emotional connection. Before they even see the movie, they're like, "Oh my god, they're doing the character I love." It's like they're meeting an old friend. So they are so forgiving of utter
And then the movie
trash.
can do no wrong.
No wrong. And I hate that. And I would like this with this too. It's like I'm in a good position where I'm able to I'm hypercritical of even things I love. Like the Peaky Blinders, I think, is the greatest show ever made. But if I can talk for 20 minutes about things that it sucks on. Even The Boys, I did my Boys review and I spent more time talking about what I didn't like about it than what I do like about it. So it's like I'm just luckily that never gets like in the way for me. But I mean, I would still rather, at minimum, I can say I would rather more of these kind of Tenets type movies or these Inception type or these like Memento type movies than more of the superhero crap.
Sure.
Even more Joker movies. I mean, I know it wasn't for everybody. Like Ralph all but didn't like it, and Adam thought it was overrated. But I'm still sure that if that was the norm for these, rather than like Wonder Woman 84.
Oh,
know?
I'll take the other ones as the norm over what is the
Wonder
norm.
Woman.
Sure.
If the Wonder Womans were the exceptions, I would at least be happier with the whole thing. But I also just don't like how it does feel. I guess what I would also say about this is I would rather it not be just one big thing. That's part of what is frustrating about the superhero thing.
I'm with you
Yeah.
there.
Is that just
Let's
one thing.
not have one thing that dominates the market.
Yeah.
Let's mix it up.
Yeah.
What
for
a novel
sure.
idea.
Unfortunately, I think with our capitalist system, that's what's going to end up happening. But we'll see.
Yeah.
Let's talk about capitalism a little bit.
Oh yes, let's open that. can
No,
of worms.
you're bringing it up. No, but really, like, it's so hard because people talk about that a lot with these movies, and the hard thing is like, what else could drive it? It's such a
Other than
double-edged
money?
sword. Well, and I guess because like so much of the problems with these movies are that there's decisions being made just over the metrics, and like this does well with people 18 to 49 and conservative Christians in this area or something like that. And I would love for them not to think that way, but
Blockchain. I don't know, people seem to be saying that as a solution to everything.
that's just the answer. blockchain helps with some kinds of things, but it still is a meritocracy system where if you do the meritorious thing, you get more money. And so the problem is that then that is a reverse feedback loop where you say, okay, then I'm going to do the thing that makes me get the most money. And then you start thinking these terms and you start making shitty movies. So it's hard because it's like, could we get a Tenet in a world where that kind of thing isn't, you know, like how do you fund these things? How do you get them to be done? You know, are we getting people to work on movies for free? You know,
what I was
so
thinking
hard.
about recently? I was thinking of what if, and I think it's already been done to some extent, but not like the way I'm envisioning it. So, okay, so like companies really want you to buy their things, right? Not film companies, just like companies in general, like, I don't know, Xanax and shit. So they like pour hundreds of millions of dollars into like these ad campaigns to plaster their ads everywhere. What if they just start funding like short films and just like put all that money into short films, but didn't like make it into a commercial short film? Like this is gonna be like really hard for a marketing person at a company to sell. But imagine this for a second, because like the temptation is to make a commercial that's like a short film with, you know, in the sense that it's artistic and, you know, well lit and well written and everything, and that presents your product in a positive way. That's the temptation if you're a marketing executive. But what if you just threw that out the window, forget about your product for a second, just make a short film. I don't know. It doesn't have to be too long. It could be like 3 minutes.
I kind of get what you're saying.
And like, just make it like about just tell the writer to write about whatever the fuck he wants, right? It doesn't matter. Just give it to someone, give it to talented people, make something amazing. And then people are literally gonna be like, what the fuck just happened there? Like, what did I just watch? Is this a commercial or is this like a movie? Like, and then people will just start looking, like, they'll like Google it for themselves. And it's like, oh shit, this is like RBC just funded like this sick short film that I love. I'm like, thanks RBC. That's gonna make me think of RBC. You know, so it's like, it's not that hard. I feel like if you have all this money, you're gonna be throwing it away on shitty ads anyway, and people hate ads.
They hate them.
Put money into just give filmmakers money. Like you're doing that anyway. You know, you have in-house filmmakers too. Like a lot of these people, like especially big companies, have in-house marketing departments with filmmakers and cinematographers and writers. And you know, so it's like just fucking let them go ham. You know, let them flaunt their talents and just try it. Well, just try it.
I guess the biggest issue off the top of my head would be that if you have a very specific product and part of the point of your commercial is to let people know here's what your need is and here's how this fills your need, then if you don't ever have a commercial, then like how does that person ever really know what that product is? It's like, hey, I just watched this short.
You're relying on the novelty of having been the first, people to actually start funding an independent film.
No, I get that, but I'm saying like you have like widget.
It's not about the product. It's about where the money's coming from. It's about the money. Right, it's about like I am a company.
Oh,
that
you
is
mean
funding
stop selling
the arts.
mops and then just start making?
No. Like you can sell mops, but like don't. It's not about the mops. The commercial has nothing to do with mops.
No.
Right.
But I'm saying it's not a commercial. Like it's a short, right? Like you said,
Yeah,
there's
it's
no
a
mops
short.
in it.
Yeah,
that's fine. But I'm saying, okay, so you make this short and you sell mops, and then you have a new special kind of mop that people don't really understand how it works yet, but it's awesome. And so I watched this short. I'm like, this is fucking dope. And top billing was Gael's Mop Co. And then I go and like, hey, let me look into these guys. I check them out. But how do I ever get the information of like what
you
this
can get?
mop
You can
is
get
and
like
how
a
it
QR
works?
code or like a website link or something. Just throw something at the end, like in the bottom in small text, and then, or it doesn't have to be super small, and then people like go to that thing and you have a
Like
you
a
have
website
page
or something.
Yeah,
that
like a
tells
splash
you about
page
the mop or
It's
something.
yeah,
Okay.
you could do it that if you really wanted to put your. If I had my way, I'd be like, I don't even want like anything related to the product, right? Like. I want like it's just a different. I don't know. It's a different
Well,
kind
that's what I'm
of.
saying. I think that's a good
right?
idea for bringing the advertising to the company, but it can be tough for the product if you're a product company.
Think of A&W. Yeah, think of A&W like for a second, right? Like, what are they? They're not innovating. Every like 3 months, they just want you to buy their burgers. So when you see an A&W commercial, it's always like, oh, I can't. So it's like it's like if A&W threw some, $100 million.
Maybe it's not for those kinds of companies. It's for like the McDonald's type companies. That makes
Yeah,
more
you have,
sense.
like,
Because
big
everyone knows already. That's fair. Yeah, that's interesting. That's very well, especially for these older established companies. Like maybe it's harder for new ones who need to get that, people to know who they are. But yeah, if you're already at McDonald's, you're right. I mean, that could also
and it'll make people hate you less, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think it would.
If you're, it's good for your brand image. I don't know. It just seems like a good idea. I just want to see that as a thing.
It's an interesting idea for sure.
It is an interesting idea, especially if they see some kind of value other than necessarily just ticket sales, because that's a big one. I know Dan Harmon was talking about how he's like, you'd be shocked at how little people watch certain HBO shows that are like known worldwide and
that are big shows. Yeah.
And he says like so much of why the quality for streaming shows is so much better than for network television is because they get to just try to write stuff to win awards so that people will subscribe. They don't need to actually get butts and seats. And so when you're making Two and a Half Men, you have to try to cast such a wide net to get people to physically sit and watch your stupid show. Like, he was struggling because Two and a Half Men was killing him while he was doing Community. And if Community had always been, he always had like a quarter of the, watch people. He said he had half the watch Nielsen metrics that Everybody Loves Raymond had. And so it's like, I think Community is infinitely better than Everybody Loves Raymond. And so he's like, yeah, that's why these streaming services, part of why they're nice, is because they're like, hey, go win us awards. Just actually write good stuff, and you don't have to write around commercial breaks.
Yeah, I mean, I think the field is slowly changing and innovating with like streaming services becoming more normalized. Theater experiences, people demanding more out of their theater experiences.
Oh yeah,
we'll see. I don't know what kind of changes we'll see in the 2020s, in that direction, but it can't be bad. Like, I don't think there's any, like, that's the thing about film. I think in general it's always been a forward good progression, right? It hasn't been like getting worse. It hasn't been like deteriorating.
It's never really regressed much.
That's fair.
So I think like we'll see something good. There's going to be another like boring trends and shit that's getting stale for sure.
Yeah,
but like
there's always going to be the certain mainstream lowest common denominator stuff that you're probably not going to be into.
Yeah.
But hopefully the rest continues to evolve and be interesting.
Yeah.
I seriously though, I am fascinated. I guess, one place to think about is what potentially could Gen Z be into that we weren't.
Oh man, I'm so ready for like like more ADHD, like, TikTok, like low form, like kind of that kind of like, I think there's
what's
like
funny though is like
I think there's art
complaints
there.
about us,
honestly,
though,
I think there's like art there. Like, I think like there's actual like potential for art in like small like form content, but if you stitch it together to like a longer arc, I guarantee there's gonna be like a TikTok movie at some point where like it's just the whole movie is just like TikTok spliced together and shit. Like I think there's like a whole bunch of stuff we haven't even dreamt of that when it comes out we're gonna be like,
kind of
oh,
surprising there wasn't a Vine movie.
Yeah, I think it's on its way, honestly.
First off, it could be still on its way, and then also it maybe didn't live long enough, because you can almost think of it where Vine didn't go away. Vine just evolved into Musical.ly, which evolved into TikTok.
Right.
So it kind of is all still like in this umbrella.
It's
I just watched
there.
The Social Network again recently too. I still love that movie. But yeah, I think Gael, you're onto something that could be interesting, is that we may need to rethink the entire structure of movies altogether. We just talked I think we talked about this last week, where I was saying I was watching the guy who wrote Back to the Future, and he was like, we were using plays, like books written about play structures, to write movies, and we made our adaptations. So you guys need to not be so married to what we wrote either, because it's like that you'll do the next evolution and kind of figure out the next thing. So there's kind of that, we may not know what we don't know yet. It's like Gen Z may come up with some kind of totally different way, like the 3-act structure's out the window. Like that's the thing too, is like I normally swear by the 3-act structure, but that's just because of like the time and where I lived. The 5-act structure's been around forever. There's I just Suspiria is like a 6-act structure or something like that. So we may just even think about how narratives are presented and stuff like that could be totally different in the future.
I think it's going to slowly change for sure. Like if you just compare like the 70s to like today, like just the pacing, the
pacing is so different.
It's so different.
So fast.
Well, back then, it was like really slow. It was like just morbidly slow. It was like a funeral. Yeah. So it's like, I don't know.
Even
now
for like a high energy comedy.
Yeah, even like a high energy comedy. It's like it's like, fuck me, just get on with it.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go.
And like these are films that I love too, like the Pink Panther and shit. Like these are films that are like good, but like it's the pacing is like so fucking slow.
I love the Pink Panther. It's so good. Yeah, totally agree. It's I completely agree. It's also like, and what's nice too is that we've also kind of done it where like when we have slow modern movies, I feel like they kind of know when and why. I watched the killing of the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford like a month ago, and it's like it's so slow, but it doesn't feel slow because it knows why it's slow, and it's like
the beats are all still there.
Yeah, they're all still there, and it's still moving, and things are happening. And the slow is building dread, rather than where you just feel like they just don't really know what they're doing. What will be interesting too is like there may be a huge pushback against it. Almost as like every year we try to get more and more naturalistic and represent real life like more and more accurately. So that will be interesting too, to see if there's like a massive pushback eventually, and everyone's like, no dude, I'm sick of that. Like I'm sick of all the superheroes and everything just turning more kind of naturalistic, and let's go for just like what
cartoonish.
What if like Climax was the average? What if Into the Void was like the average?
It's funny because that's the trajectory that video games took for a bit. Like Call of Duty was obsessed with being as realistic as it possibly could, and then after that, it's like fuck that shit.
Yep,
like,
absolutely.
Let's get fucking Overwatch
Fortnite.
and Team Fortress 2 and like cartoons and shit. I want cartoons
100%.
shooting each other.
Yeah, everyone kept saying like it's a video game. It's supposed to be fun and goofy. Like what the hell is this? Drab, brown, boring. No, totally.
Yeah, we'll probably see. I mean, I think it's easy once you have like such amazing advancement in technology and capability and what you're seeing, it becomes easy to forget that what you're doing at the end of the day is an art form and like a medium for art.
Yeah.
And like, you just need to be reminded once in a while, like just to kick in the face, be like, I can go crazy. I can do whatever I want on this canvas that is this film reel.
Totally.
So
I complain about
we'll
that constantly. There's so many directors I say need to watch people who are better. Like, Edgar Wright is so great at making a huge portion of what's funny about his movies is the editing and shot composition.
Yeah, I can't get over his fucking meticulous editing. It's insane.
Yeah.
And that there's jokes that are, if you describe them, there's no joke there. You have to see it to get what the joke was.
Yeah.
Even like Shaun of the Dead, there's a great, like, Nick Frost is asked if the zombies are still outside the window. Camera follows him slowly as he walks to the window, opens the blinds, they're still there, closes the blinds, walks back. Yep, they're still there. Like, written down, that's basically not a joke, So that's part of what's hard too about guys who are screenplay or screenwriters for comedy movies where someone else directs it, because if the only thing you can control is the dialogue, basically, then you're just going to end up writing talking heads. And that's what so many comedies are these days. It's just like three people standing, looking at each other, making jokes at each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of The Hangover, not my favorite kind of way to do comedy. So it'll be interesting. So I'm gonna let you guys go, but real quick, just to keep my promises, we said we would finish that conversation about cancel culture. If you guys,
no, that's not gonna happen in like a few minutes.
Well, I guess that's fair. I guess I just wanted to. I didn't feel like I would listen to it again. I didn't feel like I was what do you call it? Defining my terms very well. And I guess I just wanted to. We'll just keep this going over the next year. We'll say like one thing about it every time. I just wanted to define that basically, like, to me, I have zero problem with anyone who is saying I don't feel so good about someone like Louis C.K., so I don't want to support them anymore. Most of my issues come from somewhere that you said you didn't care about at all, which is like things like Twitter, where we kind of get into this mob mentality, and people maybe don't even have a real specific feeling about it themselves. They just are part of the mob, and so they're like, oh, I hate this person. The other thing I'm not a huge fan of is when people, it gets such a fervor starts to build where we start to have people losing their jobs and or losing their sponsorships and things like that. And whether or not those people will survive, the problem I have is just that I think it's crappy. And I guess people don't like when I use this, example, but I do think of the, like, when they came for the Jews, I didn't say anything kind of situation. So I would like us to try to behave in such a way where, that isn't a good for me but not for thee kind of situation. We're like, well, I don't want you guys doing that to me, but I'm going to do it to everyone else. And I think that again, a lot of this could be this personal situation where it's like, I just, maybe I even tell my friends not to watch it or whatever, but it feels like there's a lot of people who get a taste of blood and they like the idea that, like, we took down Kevin Hart, and
oh, for sure. All
right, so like maybe, like, okay, I won't disagree that there's people who maybe like get off on this stuff. But I don't think that's what's going on here. And I definitely disagree with the allegory that this is people like the word witch hunt. I don't think that witch hunt is a good explanation, or I think it's an easy one. I think it's easy to reach and be like, this is some sort of like purity test, witch hunt, high ground thing. I don't think that's what it is, but I'm not going to go down that route. I'm not going to argue that because I actually don't need that for my argument. I'll give you a different argument to think about over the next week, which is the classic, gay birthday cake or whatever the fuck it is. The gay wedding cake baker dude.
Right.
And this has already been like ruled in like several different countries where it's like, no, they can, like, a business can be like, no, we're not making that for you. Like, I don't care if you're gay. I'm not going to bake a cake that says, congratulations, Steve and Ben, on your wedding, because I don't want to, right? In fact, there isn't even really like, there isn't like outlined a reason. You don't even have to really give a reason, as long as the reason isn't because I hate gay people or because gay people aren't allowed to be serviced here.
Right.
For example, if you're a gay man and you show up to a baker and you'd be like, make me a wedding cake that says, I'm gonna suck Steve's dick, and I'm a man, and the guy says, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna make that cake for you, and you can say, all right, but can you please make me some brownies? And be like, sure, here's some brownies. That's fine. But if you go, can you make me some brownies? They're like, no, I'm not making you brownies either because you're a queer and I don't serve queers here. Then that's a problem. So
Do you go to the same bakery as me?
I think we might. But yeah, so the point is, a business can deny you service for any reason as long as the reason is not, based on your sexual orientation or your race or your gender or that kind of stuff. And you just take that, and then just extrapolate it further to what does it imply for a business making decisions. A Starbucks can decide. Like, let's say you're the manager of a Starbucks, and every Tuesday, like a Nazi comes in, like in full uniform, and just chills, and then every
Do you go to the same Starbucks as me?
We might just, and like every other Tuesday, and then eventually he starts bringing his mates around, and you've got like every Tuesday, you've just got a table with a bunch of Nazis sitting there with their like armbands and their fucking swastikas, making Jew jokes.
Right.
Now, as a manager for that Starbucks, you are completely within your right to be like, actually, we're not gonna service you. Please leave. And that's not because you're virtuous. It's because it's bad for business if everybody else around those Nazis is like, I don't want to go to this Starbucks anymore because
I don't want to go to the Nazi Starbucks.
Yeah, I'm not going to go to this Starbucks because like imagine if you have a board game meet where you're playing fucking Sudoku or some shit. I don't know what people play in board games meets.
Yeah, people love playing Team Sudoku.
the
Perfect
table
example.
next to you is just a bunch of Nazis. Like, no one's gonna want to go there. So it's just from a business perspective. I think genuinely that a lot of these are genuinely just business decisions.
Well, no,
like
we
they're
agree
not
there, though.
moral decisions.
I'm
They're not
saying
like.
No, the moral decision is not from the business; it's from the people.
I was
And
going to
so-
say, yeah, you're talking about from the
business
people in
perspective.
charge and like the
We're
people with
talking about
money
the other
behind it.
patrons.
And yeah, those are business decisions 100%.
But the
So
other
I-
patrons affect that. What
No,
the
I
other
know. That's
patrons
why-
want to be surrounded by.
The villain in the story to me is the
affects
other patrons. That's
No,
what
no,
we're
but
talking
like-
about.
patrons.
But that's not. But again, that's not like what you're talking about. Is no longer is basically like not social engineering, but kind of a degree of what is the correct zeitgeist that should be in place. What ought people believe?
Yeah,
what
yeah,
should
that's-
people
that's-
believe?
that's all
Which
I'm saying
I think
when I say I'm
that's
against, like,
that's a
cancel
moot,
culture. I think it's
almost a
lame.
moot question. Right? I don't think like that's even like the best I don't think that's the right question to ask. Is like, what should people believe? Because you can't. That's not a question you can answer. You can't be like, oh, people
right.
should believe this or people should believe that. People believe what they believe based on a variety of factors, and it just so
totally,
happens that like you get a majority of people who be like, I'm uncomfortable with this.
Right. I'm just saying
So
that there's
on-
a thing in there that I think is lame, I guess, is just ultimately what I'm saying. Like, when I say
I
I'm
don't,
against
like,
cancel
fully
culture, I'm not
disagree
talking
with
about
you.
the companies. And the thing, too, is that I also think there's a difference between these kinds of people. We talked about it last week, where it was like, what's her face who wrote Harry Potter, she is still actively engaging in the kinds of behaviors people want her canceled over, whereas someone like Kevin Hart, it's something that he stopped engaging in 10 years ago, and that they're pulling up these things from a long time ago. And I also make a pretty big distinction between those kinds of people, and
I'm happy to make that distinction.
and I
Yeah.
hate the idea that like someone made a really dumb mistake or just even Cenk Uygur. I think I talked about this too. He used to be a what do you call it? The Armenian genocide denialist, and then he got better information.
Well,
grew,
it was
matured.
worse than that. It wasn't just that he was, genocide denialist. It's that he called his entire company like the Young Turks.
The Young Turks,
after
which was the name of the people who did
yeah.
it, right? Yeah.
So there was a little bit. I can
get
totally
it. I
understand.
totally get
I understand
that,
why
yeah.
there's less charity like given to that. It's like that's fuck you. Like I get
But
that.
That's a bad one.
But the reason for me
I
though
get
is that
that.
it is a fuck you, and it was terrible. But he has changed his opinion on that.
Yeah.
Said, I've gotten more information. I don't believe that anymore. So if he was going to come and talk at a college near my campus, near my town or something, I wouldn't be like, no, you need to not talk to him because he used to believe stupid stuff. And I think
Yeah.
that's very scary and very dangerous. And
But I think that's
reminds me a lot
different
of-
too, right? Because I think he's now a politician, but also a political commentator at the
political
time
commentator,
and a
yeah, that's
pundit.
fair, yeah.
So I also like I do draw the distinction between like Kevin Hart and J.K. Rowling, but I also draw the distinction between politicians and people who are involved in politics in any way, shape, or form, and entertainers / other personalities.
But it's like I don't think we can
because
ever
I
have
think- I
any
think, like,
politicians
there's-
if they're all held accountable for like anything they ever said in college or something, or because
no,
they went to a party one time and they decided to brown up their face because
It's not that. It's that politicians make an extra effort to control how people perceive them.
Oh, okay, got it. You're saying you trust them less?
for sure.
Well, in a sense, yeah. I think with politicians, it's okay to be more cynical, and it's okay to be less charitable with how you interpret what they say. Not saying that it's okay to like
Okay, I get what you're
ostracise
saying,
and be
though,
like
yeah.
yes or no.
Because
But
he's gonna
I
make
do
their
draw
laws and stuff, and you have to be really sure that he doesn't actually still believe that stuff. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, so like I think that's okay. I don't think like I don't know about like banning them from speaking at places or whatever. I think again
Right.
that has to do more with what the institution you want to talk at believes like has its core principles and what kind of image it wants to project. I think we sometimes forget this. Like we talk a lot about like, oh, Ann Coulter was banned from speaking at UC Berkeley or something. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
But like we
Jordan
and
Peterson
we
gets
often attribute that to the masses or like the the student protesters, but I think it must also equally be attributed to the institution's desire of how it wants to be perceived
The
too.
thing is, though, is that I agree with you. I disagree with you because I agree with your earlier statement, which is that I don't think the corporations and the businesses and the UC Berkeley or whoever,
Institutions, yeah.
I don't think they care. I think that they just want to do whatever makes them look good and either makes them the most money or gives them the most political clout or whatever. So when the masses come out and say a thing, they go, okay. And so I don't think, I don't think they have strong opinions themselves.
No, but then they do care, right? Like by your own logic, then they do care because they care about
care
their image
because of
based
that, yes.
because of that, right? So they very much care. Like you're making it sound like they what you say when you say what
I think he means morally.
yeah,
they
what you
don't
mean
care.
is that they have no moral like they have no moral standing on the issue.
What I'm saying is that
which
if the people
They
didn't
do
come out and make
care.
a big stink, and the people
Yeah.
in what I would say, which is probably the very wrong way to say it, but to me, if people were a little bit more mature and nuanced about it, then they wouldn't ban so and so. It's only a reaction to I don't want to get in the news for some bad media or whatever. So if the people tell me not to serve so and so or not to do blah 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 and this that and the other thing, or not to have Colin Kaepernick or to have Colin Kaepernick, it's like that is not a decision being made out of, like you said, like these moral kind of decisions. These are literally just what will make us look good or make us look bad, and we want to avoid it. So to me, it starts with us. It starts with like if we are not so
little bit.
reactionary and freak the fuck out about these things, the corporations wouldn't do anything because they only care if we freak out.
I don't fully disagree with you, but I think it's a little bit less black and white than that because I think there are more factors that go into whether or not to quote unquote deplatform somebody if you're an institution for the people in that institution. Like the idea that it's just somebody caving to some mass pressure and not a group of people having an adult conversation about should or shouldn't we host this person. Let's actually take a look at what they've said and what they believe, and does that square with what we've been saying for over the past years. I think that's actually closer to what's actually happening. And what we see is I think we make a correlation where there isn't always one. Like it can't all 100% be the case that 100% of the time
No, and I'm not making that argument.
it's people's so I think it's a little
Nothing
bit
is 100%
more,
anything.
yeah, I think it's a little bit more complicated than that. So that's on the politicians.
I just also don't
deplatforming.
think it's a 50-50 either, though.
Yeah, I don't think it's 50-50, but I think I think it's
Especially
case by
because
case.
so many of these kinds of corporations, I mean, like with the schools and stuff, yeah, there's like the legacy and things like that, and they want to be remembered in history a certain way. But when it's McDonald's, it's like,
I don't know. I don't know who's speaking at McDonald's. I didn't hear about it.
Okay, well, but like let's talk about like the Oscars, for instance. Like they're at the point now where they're so afraid of like whoever hosts it, because basically it feels. I know you probably don't agree with this, but it feels like, especially after Kevin Hart, that it's like whatever person gets nominated for the Oscars, immediately they're gonna have this target on their back where someone can't
They're
wait
just
to go
digging.
in, to dig for 10 years back in their Twitter and try to get them on something. And then when they get them, it's like, yeah, we got that person canceled. And so what happens is now the Oscars doesn't even want to have a person at all, because it's like whoever we put up there is just gonna get canceled, and then we're gonna be screwed. And so
Okay,
it's just no point.
I think the Oscars is I don't know if it's either a good example or a bad example. I don't know, depending on what you think of what I'm saying next. But I think the Oscars is, in my opinion, not the best example because it is so blatantly the most like left-leaning like institution you could think of. Like it's literally it is the wokest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Place. I can't think of a woker place than the Oscars and like of a business. I think that's like that's their entire business model. Like so I get it, and I definitely agree with you and like feel that. And it kind of sucks. But I don't think that necessarily also applies to like at society writ large, like all these other companies writ large. I think there's more factors going into play for those than there are at the Oscars. So yeah, I don't know, but again with the JK and Kevin Hart thing, the difference there are a lot of differences obviously between those two things. With Kevin Hart having said things in the past and now has kind of maybe reformed his image a bit more, and that's a PR project for him to work on. Whereas JK is not only saying the same things she's already believes, but is also actively involved in the content that she's creating, and she continues to create content and continues to make money off of it and continues to have a big platform. So I think like I think JK is to use a leftist term, a lot more problematic in that sense than, you know, again, a Kevin Hart who maybe has said something in the past, you know.
And that's what I'm kind of getting at.
Yeah.
I hate when we kind of do this, like everyone gets lumped in, you know, like Aziz Ansari had a situation that popped up around the same time as Harvey Weinstein. And I remember too many people lumping those guys into the same situation.
Yeah, like Harvey Weinstein raped 40
right.
women, and someone went on a bad date with Aziz.
Right.
Yeah. I think I talked about that with my friend Mila on the other podcast. It's kind of funny. I think he did like the claw or something with her, which is pretty funny. Where you put like your fucking fingers in your mouth and you like, I don't know, something weird. I don't know what straight people do, but
It's disgusting.
it sounds awful.
You don't want to
honestly.
see it. I'll draw you a picture, but you're not going to like it.
Probably not. You can get one of the people from the anyway. No, but like I think now there has been a little bit more gradation. I think people do, especially now. Like if you Wikipedia like Aziz Ansari or whatever, or like Lawrence Krauss, for example, which I was doing the other day. People like in the Wikipedia article and in the way that people phrase it, they make the distinction between this is like sexual assault or sexual misconduct or you know, some other like our phraseology has been getting more nuanced with the explicit purpose of creating more distinctions between you know, the different levels of whatever type of misconduct one might be involved in. And I think that's happening also like from outside of a sexual context, on a more quote unquote woke context, on whether or not blackface or whatever, or like, you know, saying
I don't
something
know.
about queer people.
I don't know if I've heard that yet. Calm down, because that still seems to be like just persona non grata, you know, like even like Grace Kelly got fired from her job for asking why you can't do blackface. So I'm, you know, I still think that
I don't know.
too
I
rough,
don't know.
but...
From what I've been seeing and like the phraseology and like the language that I inhabit in my own leftist circles, I've definitely seen a lot more nuance than is given to the, like, I think there's more credit should be given to like what's actually happening. I think it's easy to look at the mob at large and be like, this is what they are like. But I think that there is genuinely more
I'm
going
complaining
on.
about the mob. So that's kind of the problem. Is like I think that's kind of one of the things you and I are getting stuck on. Is that I agree. I have a similar experience with you with like my friends. People I choose to hang out with, I don't think are assholes, right? So a lot of my friends see these things more nuanced, and even if they do start right off the bat with like, "Oh my god, can you believe what so and so did?" We can talk and kind of get into a place that seems sane. But so the complaint isn't that I think every single person is acting this way. It's that there is this powerful mob that's getting things done, and I think it kind of sucks because it's almost like we know how mob rule can act. We've seen pictures of lynchings with like hundreds of people dressed in really nice suits while they're like burning black people on trees. We know how mobs can act, and because of things like Twitter, we can now have the kind of never-ending rolling digital mob, and so I just in essence, I guess a lot of what I'm saying is just a cautionary tale that it's like our best armor against that kind of thing getting out of control and being a huge problem for everything is nuance and maturity, and actually taking certain things case by case and being like, okay, but what specifically happened, and using your language carefully. I get very stressed out when I hear, rape invoked for things that I don't consider rape, and it's like, maybe we should reserve that word for things with certain penalties connected to it, and I don't know. It also is hard because I also know some people who are in those kind of thought patterns. I know them personally. So it's like when you meet one of those people, you're kind of like, oh shit, you guys exist. Like there is one of you,
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you said Grace Kelly. I think you meant Megyn Kelly.
No, it was Grace Kelly from 1940.
No, it's Princess Grace, really.
Yes, Megyn Kelly. Thank you.
Which I think like, and I think like that, does require a little more context for people, obviously, because I think like Grace Kelly's like, what? Grace Kelly got fired?
No, thank you.
She raped Prince Rainier
in 1956. Grace Kelly.
Yeah, but no, like obviously Megyn Kelly, like as a
God.
personality, like it had. I think it's really important to be very precautious when we're using specific examples of people. I know we were talking about like John Boyega last time and stuff.
Right.
Like I think because I do think that it's a case by case basis. Like I think
agree.
I don't think it's easy to just be like, this everything is like this is because of this is cancel culture and this is the mob and this is mob mentality and blah blah blah. Like I think like
but it's also
obviously
why I'm giving you cases though. Like that's why I'm trying to not just say that. Like,
yeah, but
this
like,
is happening. I'm trying to be like, for instance, this happened, or for instance,
yeah,
this happened.
you're saying for instance Megyn Kelly, therefore mob mentality, which like I don't see that connection, right? Like I think Megyn Kelly's firing was as cynical as her hiring by NBC, right? To quote a headline, right?
Yeah, that's a
like
fair way to put it.
to say that it's some sort of virtue signaling, like blackface thing, and not the thousands of other things she said and the shaky past that she's had with.
Well, is that
Fox
what you
News
feel like
and
it is? You think it was like that was the last straw?
Yeah, I think it's an easy justification for NBC
Because they just hired her, you know?
like yeah. But it's NBC too, right? And again, another caveat: political commentator and not entertainer, right? So again, I think case by case, and I don't think that's
in America. Those are very, very close twins.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I still draw the distinction between like content creators and entertainers and dancers and artists and like political pundits and commentators, because I think those people have a responsibility to some extent, especially if you're working for a news agency, to present and to yourself in a certain way, even whether or not we agree with that. I don't I don't care really. I mean, I think it happens on the right just as well. But I think if you're if you're part of a political organization, you're more pressured to present yourself in a certain way. So I don't think these are like necessarily good examples of how the mob acts and the mob kills and cancels and the mob dictates, because
Well,
I don't.
That's kind of.
I don't really, honestly, don't really. I know that it happens, but I think it's greatly exaggerated the effect and the agency that the quote mob actually has. I think these things happen way more often on a case by case basis, where things are justified retroactively based on these types of justifications. So like someone wanted someone else gone, and then they go like, aha, now I got
And
this.
then here's this.
Yeah, now I can get rid of you.
Okay,
so I think like that's a lot of what's happening.
That's having to do a little bit of conspiratorial thinking about something if you don't have it right there in front of you. And just as presented, that's what happened as far as they presented it. Was that she said these things, people were outraged, and so they fired her for it. So
I mean, fair, but again, I think again the Megyn Kelly is a very, I don't know, like anyone who knows Megyn Kelly or who knows her history or what she said, and also who knows NBC and their kind of insane hiring schemes and what the show was, can probably understand that the decisioning that was made by like to say that they hired her and they went, what? Megyn Kelly said that? She
Kelly
can't stay
from
like,
Fox?
like there's no like to like they're clutching their pearls, and like there's no way that's what happened, right?
Well,
They knew what they were
I don't
getting.
think it was them saying, "Oh my God, she said that." It was, "Oh my God, look at what these people are reacting with." The mob has spoken.
I don't buy it.
And
Like
if
they
we
knew
don't
what they
fire
were
her,
getting.
then they'll think that we agree with her or something. Which it's hard to
Yeah.
agree with a question. I still think.
Then
that
why
situation's
hire her to begin
frustrating.
with, right? The mob already hates her. Why hire her to begin with, right? So it's like I don't know. I think it doesn't. I don't
will agree
I don't
that I thought
believe
that
it.
was a weird hiring thing. The best I could come up with was it was kind of a dunk on Fox.
That's what it was.
It was like, "Hey, we got one of your people, assholes."
Yeah, that's all it was.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't fully buy it.
Fair enough, and that's fair. And I'm not trying to convince you either. Like, I just want to better. I didn't, we didn't get into it much last time, so I felt like I was very barely explaining my points, so I just kind of want to like, this is, where I'm coming from, and these are my concerns, and not to compare everything to 1984 every time, like I hate people when people do that, but it's like, you do, when you see those scenes where it's like the parents are afraid of their children because their children can just lie and make up stuff about them and then they're in the gulag. It's like, I would hate for us to get to this point where everyone is having to be so afraid that like, if I don't say the most common denominator opinion about some X, Y, and Z thing, then all my sponsorships are gone. It's like, that seems lame. Like, I just don't want to live in that world.
I will say I don't think you should be worried, because I don't think we're anywhere near that point.
I'm
Like,
not
I don't
yet,
even think
that's my
we're-
game plan.
Yeah.
That's why
I don't think
here.
we're even grazing it. And I will make it just one final
Oh,
distinction.
you mean society?
especially-
I thought you meant us
Yeah,
three.
societally.
Sorry. The three of us.
To make one final point on the 1984 aspect to it, I think we, and by we I mean we in North America, and maybe just most of the Western world, are so now used to what we have in our institutions and our amazing rights to say whatever we want, our free speech, legal, rights that are enshrined in our laws, that we are now looking at kind of business and corporations and like the corporate life, and we're holding it to kind of the same standard as our legal life. Like
I
I
agree
don't
with
think
you.
that's
I
the same
complain with
thing.
that all the time. I totally agree. With
I
you.
don't-
hate when
I don't
people
think-
invoke the First Amendment against Twitter because Twitter is not
Yeah.
the government. I totally
Like,
agree with you on that.
So like just
Yeah.
So as a response to that, like I don't think that we're even like once shit starts getting legislated, I will back you to the hilt. Right?
The difference though being
Sure, yeah.
that my concerns aren't jail. It's just that I think it's lame. You know, it's like so.
well,
I'm
well,
not
that's
worried
just,
that like
you know.
the government's going to come and put me in jail or put me in the gulag or something. It's just like I would hate to, you know, like like even on this podcast sometimes I'm afraid of saying exactly what I think about certain things because I'm like, God, I know how people are acting these ways. I don't feel like they used to act like that in the early 2000s and the 90s. And maybe they did. I know at a certain point in the 90s
They were
did, because
too
that's what
busy
PCU was
watching
made about.
300.
300 and Friends. So, you know, I don't
Another
know.
world.
But
But
I
yeah,
mean,
no,
it's not the biggest thing in the world. It's just a thing, you know.
There's a lot of people there's a lot of fish in the sea. There's a lot of people
Yeah.
living around us. A lot of people with different opinions, and you know they're not always going to mesh with ours. I think the reality is, it's easy to paint ourselves as nuanced and the
Yep,
people who we ideologically disagree with as black and white. But in reality, I think everybody really thinks about these things more deeply than we give them credit. And I think everybody, like literally, like 99% of everyone in society would hate it if we started like legislating things like you can't make a comment about black, like where it's like you're gonna lose your employment based on comments that you make.
Didn't you guys
Again,
just
unless
legislated
it- unless
dead naming,
it-
didn't you?
Legislated what?
Dead naming?
Again, unless it goes well, I'm not sure if you lose your job. I don't think we did legislate that unless you're
No, not
barring
not the losing job part, but I thought it was like actually like fines.
Are you?
or
Is
jail
this
time.
like a Jordan Peterson thing? Is that the
No,
thing
it was just something I had heard. I thought you guys were actually working on.
No, that's not a thing as far as I know.
Oh, okay.
The
Alright.
Yeah,
only
not
the
that I
only
know, per
restrictions, the only legal restrictions on free speech are not even the fire thing, by the way. Like that's a bullshit one. Like it's yelling fire in a crowded theater. You can legally do that. People don't
Yeah.
know this, but that's not a
Right,
thing.
right.
It's only if it infringes on like from the United States Title IX, like any sort of like hate speech or discriminatory, like I want to kill black people or something.
Inciting to violence.
That's
Yeah.
a big one for me when I talk, because I think hate speech basically doesn't exist, and so it stresses me out because there's a lot of like it almost always means whoever wrote the thing what they think it is. But I that's where my thing is. A lot of my freedom of speech things where I want to draw the line myself is like literally incitements of violence, like doxing people and like go and hurt this person kind of things. Like that's where
Yeah.
most of my issues come from.
Yeah.
Where
And-
I think
and that's where
law
the
should be able
legal-
to tell you not to.
And that's where the law does tell you not to. Like like if you go out on a rally and start if you
Yeah.
rally people and start saying let's round up all the Jews
Yep.
or something.
Yep, exactly,
then you're protected by the law. Then you're gonna go to jail for that.
Mm-hmm.
And even that's like some people argue, like some libertarians, hardcore libertarians, and people argue that
They're
shouldn't
like,
be
nope,
the
still
case.
speech. You can
Which-
do it.
which
the hard
they-
part
I mean-
with libertarians is most of them
Yeah.
come from means. There are very few dyed-in-the-wool libertarians who need any
Yeah.
help. So it's a
Exactly,
very
yeah.
easy place to come from to say that, oh yeah, I want the government to completely leave me alone and I don't need any help, when you actually don't
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
need any help. and you're,
I'll
like,
pave my
self-sufficient.
own roads.
I think
right.
I think real libertarians shouldn't vote but I'm not gonna get into that. But like if you don't
Yeah.
believe in the government,
Yeah,
then
right.
why you probably don't believe
Then
in
why are you
voting.
participating?
Yeah, exactly.
Not to mention, as soon as we had no government, there would just be another government. It would just
Yeah.
be whoever had more guns and men, would just now be the
Yeah.
new guys. And we don't
Yeah, I
want
think we
that
talked. I
either.
think I don't know if I was talking about it on this podcast with like the whole like how Lebanon functions and like as a collection of different factions where like there isn't really a government. It's just factions. And again, like what you said, whoever has more power, whoever has the guns, whoever has the militias,
Well, right.
ends up being the government, the de facto government.
Literally, right. You could have
So-
20
Yeah.
people, and if you could get one guy to round up 8 of them, then yeah, like that's going to
Then
be
you
a
have a
little
government.
mini
You have a
government.
government. Yeah.
They'll tell you what you can and can't do. Yeah, like communes are little mini governments. So it's so goofy because I have some friends who are just like hardcore anarchist. Or just like, no government, we'll take care of ourselves. And it's like, no, you won't. Some other guy
won't.
will figure you out for you.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, and by the way, also from a legal perspective, you have legal names too, which you can legally change. So somebody could legally change their pronouns, and then as far as the law is concerned, they are female. You don't have to call them a female. You can still dead name them if you want. You can still call them wrong pronouns in the same way that they can call you the wrong pronouns. But I think like everybody, this is a point
Yeah.
that I heard, this that Mila made to me on the podcast, is that everybody doesn't want to be misgendered. Like, like
Yeah,
if
of course. Yeah.
if like, if your boss if you're a male, if you're a cis male and your boss starts like calling
Keeps
you
calling
she
you a
and
woman.
her, that is
course,
grounds for workplace harassment. Like you could literally go to the board and be like, he's fucking with me.
Yeah, I get
it's like
that.
that's fully so it's like nobody wants to be misgendered. It's not just like trans people, right?
Yeah, I am a huge freedom of speech guy, and a lot of my stuff comes from just the point of view where I'm afraid of a future where the government can start telling you legally what certain kinds of things that they tell you to do. I'm also a massive like drug freedom person. Like I don't think that pretty much any drug should be illegal, and so that drives me insane as well. And I think that we already take it on the nose a lot for freedom issues that no one seems to fight for. But it's hard because a lot of times I find myself having to defend things that I don't actually agree with, but just on like a legal basis where it's
on
like
principle.
Yeah, on principle, I don't want my friends to do X, Y, and Z. I don't want my friends to do heroin. I would never encourage my friends to do heroin, but I think it's ridiculous that the government's saying that we can't. So like I do find myself in a difficult position a lot of times where I'm defending something where someone could misinterpret it as, oh, well, he's pro dead naming. It's like, no, it's not that. I don't want anyone to do it, but it's terrifying to me for the government to force me, because the part of it comes down to a dead naming is a lot of times what it is the government it's whoever trying to force someone to say something that they don't believe, and that gets creepy sometimes. It's like we wouldn't want that if we were a I don't know, a Christian society, which we kind of are. It's like I hate a lot of the situations we kind of have that with Christianity, where it's like I don't believe in Jesus, the baby Jesus, so I don't want anyone forcing me to speak or behave in a certain kind of way that's in line with that, as if I did.
I don't think anyone's forcing anyone to do anything. Honestly.
No, they're
like,
not.
I think
I'm
that's
just talking about like if dead naming were to become a law situation here, that's kind of what they're doing, where they're saying like you see with your eyes a man, and
I don't even think it's
have
close.
to.
Okay. I don't even think it's close, honestly. Like I think that's just propaganda, almost propaganda. Like,
you're saying close to happening? Okay.
Like I don't even think that's even.
No,
like,
I agree. We are quite a ways from that, and it would take a lot of fairly extreme steps for.
Yeah, like I don't like that's
happen.
like that's a slippery mountain. That's not even slippery slope. that's like
sure. I just don't.
And I feel the same way about what was the other thing we were just talking about? Not just dead naming, but the other. Like drugs. Right. I don't think it's. I think you used the word ridiculous. I don't think it's ridiculous that the government says you can't have heroin. I think it's understandable. We don't have to agree with it. I mean, I don't know. I don't actually have a very hard opinion on it. I think the war on drugs is ridiculous. Perhaps
I think so too.
But other than that, I don't think I think it's understandable that a government doesn't want to make these hard drugs legal necessarily.
But there's lots of things that the government wants that I think are ridiculous. The government would like to be kings basically. So it's like we having to keep that reined in. It's like the government's wants are not the most important want.
I think it depends on the government. I think you obviously here you mean the United States government, which maybe.
I don't know any government that wants less power.
I agree, actually. I actually think you can actually extend that greater, not just governments, but institutions. I think no institution of power will ever cede its power voluntarily, ever.
Sure.
And that includes like the patriarchy, for example. I think that's one of the reasons we have a culture war right now. It's not just the patriarchy, but also like quote unquote white culture, white supremacist, if you even buy into that. But I think that one of the reasons we have a culture war is because there is this kind of wresting of power from institutions which have traditionally had it for a very, very long time, and who like governments, will not cede that power voluntarily.
Absolutely.
And that power comes in the form of language and comes in the form of whatever, the employment and healthcare and legal space and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And also just like seats at the table,
Exactly.
There's a lot of, especially in America, we've had a lot of institutions that have been created out of like some kind of tragic event happen, and then basically it either gets resolved or maybe it's just been 10 years and it's not relevant anymore, but the group is like, well, hey, we're here, so we're here. Like, I'm not, I don't,
of course,
we're not going to disband. Hey, we did it, guys, let's disband. It's like, that just never happens here. And we've seen that with us too, even with our government projects. We've made projects that were supposed to be like temporary to help us get over a certain hurdle, and that just never goes away. Patriot Act is a great example. They got to
Classic.
use
Homeland Security, Patriot Act,
exactly, all of those kinds of things. It's like they weren't like, okay, we did it, it's over, so let's like disband this stuff. So
the most banal example, but one that just makes me so mad, is when the Olympics were here in 2010. They extended the time on all the parking meters to 10 p.m. and they were 6 or 8. They were all 6 or 8 p.m. before that, and it was free after that. And they're like, we swear it's just for the Olympics. Oh, man. Well, it's been 10 years and it's still dirty. Fucking 10 o'clock.
Because then they have to go back and look at the books and try to figure out where money's coming from.
They're like, we made more money when you had to pay for parking longer. Why would we ever give that up.
Which that's the most banal example. Like some of the worst ones are us with like private prisons and with the schedule system of like marijuana being Schedule 1 with heroin. you
Yeah.
know?
I would love working from home to be something that stays a thing.
Yeah, no shit,
Like,
right?
maybe
Yeah,
that'd be like a
seriously.
hopefully, but I don't know
I
if that's
think
gonna happen.
I think it could because the money is on that side.
I think
it's-
so too. I'm
Yeah.
optimistic about
They
it.
save a lot of money from having everyone stay at home. You guys are paying your own electric bills and your own utility bills and stuff. And
Yeah, you
they
don't need giant office
giant,
space.
massive skyscraper offices, right? They could have these like
Yeah.
skeleton crew-sized offices and stuff, which also has a huge environmental
And then we could just do like the Fight Club thing to all those buildings.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect.
Domestic terrorism.
Project Mayhem. Project Mayhem.
We'll see if we can get the Pixies to come back. And then same thing with like also like childcare. You have like that's even there's like societal benefits we should be thinking about too. I love how
Yeah.
Andrew Yang put it. He was like, there are certain things that we quantify it as being like rated 0 for GDP. It's like worthless when they're actually very important and
Huge.
helpful.
Yeah.
So child rearing is something that we consider as 0 on the global GDP. But he's like, but if we worked that in, our GDP would go down. It's like if these people could work from home and actually raise their own kids, there would be a huge bump in the success of those children as they got older, and that would be a direct benefit for us. Same thing with like free college. It's like, well, who's going to pay for it? It's like, honestly, the next generation is going to pay for it from them all
It's going to
having
pay for
degrees.
itself next generation. Exactly.
Yeah, it's like the same thing about the USPS. Like people are like, oh, the postal service like loses money. It's like it's a service.
Yes,
it's
exactly.
Not. It's not like
Yeah,
business.
it's
It's
not,
not
a
a
private
business.
Not a
It's
business,
literally
it's
a
a
service.
service, right? Yeah,
Like
100%.
it's like what? What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
And a lot of these things you can get people.
Does infrastructure make
Lose
money?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are roads making money? Like, no, we lose money
Yeah.
on roads because they have to fill in
Like, come
potholes
on.
all the time. It's like, it's so goofy.
So let's just get rid of him. That's the whole idea. Let's get rid of roads.
Well, the other
We
thing
don't
too
need
in
roads.
America
No
is
more
that
roads.
people are so anti-socialism in America, but they don't think about how many socialist policies we already have. They don't. No one complains about like, goddamn firefighters using up all my tax dollars. No one's mad about public schools. No
Goddamn
one's-
public schools.
We have
Yeah.
so many socialist things that are like massive government-run socialist situations, and then you'll
Yeah.
talk about doing one more thing, and they're like, no, so,
Not that one.
Yeah, so it's,
The
I heard
Reds
it
are
was
coming.
socialist.
yeah, well, that too. Fear, man. God, people are, and it makes sense. It's like Elon Musk was talking about how we're roughly rated to be 3 times more sensitive to. I think I've already said this to you guys. It's like if I gave you $15, it would feel as good as me taking as bad as it would feel me taking away $5. Like you have to. It's like a 3 to 1 that we're more
Yes.
concerned about. Negative
Positive to
stimuli.
negative.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So the idea there is that if that's true, it makes a lot of sense that that's why it's so powerful for us and everything motivates us. Like fear motivates us so often because it's like this. It has been very evolutionarily useful for us to be like that. And we have a million evolutionary things that are holding us back now because we've kind of grown our cortex to the point where we don't need those kinds of behaviors. But we're still stuck with them. And so like racism is just an extrapolation of tribalism, which we kind of don't need anymore. But it was very useful. It got us here. So it's
There's a really good article I would highly urge everyone to read called "How the U.S. Empire Stole the Left's Ideas" by Joseph Massad. It's on MiddleEastEye.net.
Hold on, let me look this
I'll
up.
link it. I'll
Okay,
link
cool.
it
Yeah, cool.
to you guys, but then like everyone else should just look it up. And I
I'll
think
put it
like,
in the YouTube description.
yeah, we talked about because you briefly talked about how like the propaganda and like the Red Scare and like how people, how do we come to this? How do we get to where we are, where the words, these terms mean what they mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, I think like this article like does a really good job of just laying it all out.
That's interesting. Is he saying that basically like that never happened here, but we stole all your guys' villains?
No, it's basically like like all the things that were traditionally like considered like leftist or Marxist, or came from like left circles, were then eventually co-opted and redefined by the United States government in order to self-serve essentially. And so like, so terms like imperialist start being used by the U.S. against like other forces, like they would use like the evil Chinese empire or the evil Russian empire.
We're one of the most imperialist countries.
And where also the concept comes from like like hard left like philosophers. The concept of imperialist comes from
Right.
it was really fleshed out in Capital.
Super leftist
So,
guys. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and
No,
like
great
Newspeak
point, yeah.
and democracy and racism and like all of these ideas, like where like these are kind of all traditionally like came from leftist literature, but has been since either reduced or co-opted or redefined in ways that kind of better serve the people in power, like
and
today.
used against the leftists,
the U.S. government, and used against the leftists,
which
exactly.
is
And
pretty
I
funny.
think some of these are like cognitive trapdoors that even we fall into, like, that we don't think about. Like, wait, like this is something that we has been the case for a while. We just never thought about it that way.
I find myself having to try to be very diligent to take captive my own thoughts and make sure that like, is this what I think because of research and theory crafting that I have done, or how many things are ball and chains I'm carrying from my childhood. The other thing too is, I mean, I grew up in a very conservative Christian background. I was Christian for 27 years, so there's constantly things where it's like, wait a second, I still have this opinion about this thing I never thought about, and like, why do I have X, Y, and Z opinion about whatever? So yeah, that's a thing forever. So
Yeah.
but cool. One last question I got before I let you guys go. I was going to ask earlier, I was thinking about it. Where does your guys, you said you have freedom of speech situation going on in Canada. Where does that come from?
We have a charter, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
Okay, Bill of Rights
is
kind of
what it's
situation.
called.
Okay.
It's kind of like it's like a Bill of Rights.
It's pretty Bill of Rights. So yeah.
Okay. That's interesting because I remember I think if you...
It comes from the Queen.
I was thinking
The Queen says we have free
Queen
speech.
Victoria.
God save her. It fits with my Walmart thing where it's like, if you go into Walmart and ask almost any American, they'll just be like, yeah, it's just all Western countries have freedom of speech. And I didn't have that challenged until that situation happened with Count Dankula, and he was like facing jail time. And I was like, what? And I was like, oh, I guess not every country technically has like a Bill of Rights and has.
Is that
like,
a
First
Canadian
Amendment.
thing? I don't know.
No,
what Count Dankula is.
he was Irish.
Okay.
And what happened was he, as a lark, trained his. He's like, my girlfriend has.
That's right.
Yep. He's like, my girlfriend has a pug, and I hate it. And she
It was
thinks
a
it's
good
so cute."
bit.
And he's like, so
It was a funny bit.
He's like, so he taught her dog how to handshake, but he was saying it was a Nazi salute, and he's like, I taught the dog how to do a Nazi salute as a joke. I don't think it's a funny joke, but I certainly don't think he should go to jail for it. And he literally had to go to court and defend himself, like he was going to go to jail for.
That's interesting.
I forget if they're calling it hate speech or if they're calling it something else, or dangerous speech or something like that. But
Europe is still pretty touchy about Nazi
right,
stuff.
and I get that too.
Understandably.
It's like, understandably, because
I mean,
I'm pretty sure it's illegal to actually do like a
Germany's the worst. They're
Germany,
basically
right?
Nazis about it.
I was gonna say, nice. I was saying, I think it's literally illegal to do like a Hitler salute or a Nazi salute in Germany.
It is.
That would be a huge.
But I think
freedom of
that's
speech
understandable.
situation
I
here.
think we can't hold that against the Germans forever.
No.
It's hard because, like I said, that's that same situation where I'm like, I don't want anyone doing it.
They also, by the way,
But-
have like Nazi parties like resurfacing there, like unironic, like kind of like how
I
like
heard,
Nazis are back now, like everywhere.
Yeah, I know,
It's
I
like
actually- I heard
they're in
that.
Germany and they really don't like that they're in Germany. Like Germans are like, fuck all of you guys.
I heard Poland was having some real hard issues with that right now. I
Oh,
heard
yeah.
that they have like a really
Classic.
radical right wing.
Poland's been like slowly inching its way to like Turkey, like for the past like
yeah.
couple decades
weird.
now.
No, it's
Like they hate gay people, they hate trans people, they hate like Jews.
Yeah, we're not saying they're all bad,
no, that's
but they have their issues.
No, it's a tough one. It's interesting to see how that is how that's moving, and I think a lot of these really hardcore right wing parties come out of hard times. And
Yeah.
For sure, that's exactly what happened in Greece.
Well,
Yeah.
Germany.
Like Greece, like went bankrupt as a country, and then these like Nazi-esque far right parties are coming in and actually gaining some.
I had
traction.
no idea actually. I knew about them falling apart financially part. I didn't know about the Nazi part. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's hard because I think a lot of these people, well, it's, conservatism, if you get away from the political definition, you just think about it's like, if you're in a low resource situation, you get more conservative. You
Want
start
to
to get
conserve.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
right. You so all of that xenophobic fascist kind of, I mean, if you think about it, fascism was defined by Mussolini, who was selling it as a good thing. He's like, Italy first.
Vote
we're
fascist.
Yeah. Like we're us. We're gonna focus on us. There's all this globalism that's killing us, and the problem too is that sometimes globalism is killing us. So that's the thing with like, there's this nuance problem where it's like we do have issues where you end up offshoring all of your jobs to some third world country, and then your guys end up getting all poor and broke, and they're all angry, and then some bad actors show up and they're like, hey, it's those freaking Jews' fault, and then they come and you get this super hyper conservative Nazi kind of fascistic kind of thinking. So it's difficult because to an extent, a lot of these kinds of things could be solved from leftist policies. If we had like Medicare for all, it's like you can help these people. If you had UBI, it would be very difficult for a guy to come and find a bunch of like off-placed workers and then get them to like raise their fist and want to go burn down places and stuff, because they're all broke and they have no health insurance, because they're not broke and they do have health insurance.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know how this always turns into the political podcast, but I just wanted to. But I guess it's just.
Yeah.
I think part of it's just because you guys are Canadian, so it's like I talk about all this stuff to Americans constantly. So it's really interesting to get a chance to talk to somebody from a different country.
Yeah.
That also is,
We're barely a different country. But
well,
yeah.
and that's the other
it's-
thing too, though. It's nice because it's a little different, so I'm not like
Just slightly.
right.
If you're talking about this to a European, to a French person, it would be a completely different
it
conversation.
really
Yes.
would,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And I think it would also be different to the point where it would be hard for me not to come across as offensive. So it's nice to. It's like it's a nice baby step. It's like I get to like training wheels talking to you guys because if I was talking to somebody from Malaysia or something like that,
You would
it
need
just-
to contextualize things a lot more. Like we know where you're coming from when you
Right.
say
Yeah.
certain things. Like
Right.
you would need to contextualize a lot more, I think.
Right. No, fair enough. Well, hey, awesome talking to you guys. I had a blast. And what got you into golfing?
I don't even want to know.
Billy Madison?
I just like I don't even like golf. I just like the idea of having money and walking around in a field.
I 100%.
So that's mainly the draw.
You saw Succession, and you're like, yeah,
He saw the George
Yeah,
Carlin bit on
this.
golfing. I was like, I want to do
Yeah.
that.
yeah.
I want to do that.
I want to be that guy.
I was more
But
the
not
Robin Williams
ironically.
golfing guy.
Who, Robin Williams?
No, my
Yeah, he had
my
a great bit on golfing.
my grandpa was a big golfer, and I guess he got me into it. And yeah, I've been golfing since I was like 10, 11.
Well, that's a sweet story, sir.
That's funny.
That warms my heart. Okay, awesome. All right, cool. Well, then I will catch you guys. Okay, we want to shoot for 2 Fridays from now.
Sure.
All right, awesome.
And I will give a heads up if that's bad. Although, Gael, are you done work
Not
by
until
then,
the
Gael?
30th.
Because I can always do earlier on a Friday. It's just I usually go like afternoon, evening.
Yeah, that's
so,
fine. The 30th will
yeah.
be my last day, and then after that, I'm fun employed.
Ooh, I do like fun employment.
Well, thoughts and prayers, Gael. And,
I'll apply
T's
for
and
like
P's.
some benefit and see what happens.
okay, sure. Yeah, no, good. Yeah, what about you, Scoot? I know your situation was kind of messed up just because of the wrestling. You know, obviously you're not out there rubbing on each other.
it remains messed up.
Yeah, that sucks, man. You guys going to Fight
Yeah.
Island?
Probably gonna go to Fight Island and
way to do it.
where the fuck even is it? I can't remember. Is it Russia-ish?
I would hope so. That'd be amazing. They're gonna freeze their
Yeah, I can't
ass
remember
off
where
in Russia. Could you imagine a Russian island being like a really nice place to go?
No,
That sounds so
literally
cold.
can't.
That sounds so cold. All right, awesome. All right, well, love you guys a long time. Thoughts and prayers.
Cool.
I'll catch you guys.
Take it
later.
easy.
Take it easy. Bye.
See you later. Real answer, I snuck into Freddie Got Fingered underage and
Hell yeah.
was asked to leave.
By who?
The usher.
He, like,
Actually,
was-
it might have been Usher. I think he was singing My Way at
That'd
the
be
time.
so great. That'd be
Yeah.
so great. The usher was like, "Hey, what's that little kid doing in here?"
I mean, I
So-
feel like I was like a year